Hello and welcome, friends, to Nothing and Like It, the podcast that chronicles the UK's Frontier Wrestling Alliance through its adventures on television. I am Kieran Lefort, the captain of the SS Nothing, as this month we navigate the choppy waters of 2003. Of course, I could not do this without my two able seamen. The hot new Netflix show is Queen of Villains, but we don't have that kind of budget, so instead I'm joined by the Squire of Tweeners, Andy Ogden. Andy, how you doing?
I'm ready to sail this ship and sink it.
Uh-oh. And friend to the chickens of Scotland, which with his wrestling connections I guess makes him Farmer Burnsnight, Eddie Sideburns. Eddie, how you doing?
Farmer Burnside as well. It can work both ways. Yeah, I'm great. I've been waiting for this for a while, especially the topics we're going to get involved into.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to steel myself for the moment until I get extremely excited. But I cannot wait. This is something I'm looking forward to so much.
You are like a horse bashing up against a stable door.
Let's go.
Now, we have a lot to cover today, so I've drafted in some extra help. Probably the biggest fan of the FWA during this period and a fixture in the front row of many of the shows. These days, he's BritWresAwayDays, but back then he was UK Hat Guy, Ben Corrigan. Ben, how are you?
I'm really well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on. I'm looking forward to this. I'm an avid listener and eager to get involved.
An eager contributor, excellent. I'm gonna ask a couple of primer questions before we get going. So, how did you? We've known each other a really long time, like since the shows we were watching. But I don't think I've ever asked you, how did you become a wrestling fan in the first place?
Possibly very similar to yourself. At the ages of about 9, 10, and WWF was everywhere. It was on bed covers, crisp packets, you name it, chocolate bars, ice cream bars. The toys were in the Argos catalogue, the videos were in Woolworths. And so you couldn't really be a kid my age and not get into wrestling. Mostly it was watching WCW on ITV. I was watching first more than WWF. But yeah, and then it kind of grew from there, and was kind of like seeking out more to go and actually watch. Obviously, I kind of watched the old American Wrestling Live type things as they would tour the town halls near to where I was growing up in North Yorkshire, and that gradually expanded my horizons.
So to kind of paint the picture of the landscape a bit more, we're very much inside the FWA bubble on this show, obviously. And the FWA kind of was a bubble in British wrestling at this point. What sort of stuff were you going to outside of that?
In terms of actually at the time, nothing.
Oh, nothing at all?
Nothing really, because I'd kind of, as a child growing up, I'd been kind of going to those all-star type, the touring circus town hall shows. They'd come to your town once a year, and I'd pop along and go and see that, or I'd go and see it at Scarborough. I'd go to the touring shows that were there in the summer, but there wasn't. But I'd kind of thought that's what British wrestling was at the time. There was nothing else that was kind of prompting me to go out and go and see it. I'd potentially go and see some of the WWF shows when they were touring, say once a year. I'd go and see the likes of like Insurrection and Rebellion and things. But it was actually, I was aware that there was other British wrestling happening because I was quite the reader of things like Power Slam magazine, and so every now and then you'd get the adverts and the reviews for things like, in fact, I think you were there at the EWA Dirt Bike Kids shows at the Walthamstow Assembly Hall. Yeah. And I know a couple of you guys have covered the UWA Wrestling Rampage and things, so I was aware there was more to British wrestling than what I was seeing, and kind of it was actually reviews and things like FWA shows when like the likes of Sabu came over to FWA in Halifax, I think it was, and there was a show at Coventry Skydome called UCW.
Yes,
it was kind of like a follow up to UWA, but UCW had this what you'd think of as a big show at the Coventry Skydome. I mean, I didn't go, but the reviews of it sounded fantastic. It sounded like this is something that I really want to go and see. So I was aware that these things were happening. I wasn't necessarily going to them at that stage.
I see.
The first time I tried to dip my toe into the water was Wrestle Express.
Oh dear.
Which was the least ill-fated show that was supposed to happen in Coventry Skydome.
Yes.
With a lot of the likes of the FWA wrestlers on it. Alex Shane was supposed to be there, Jody, Johnny, Doug Williams. So I had tickets to that. It was shit canned on about a week's notice. I didn't bother going to the hastily rearranged Dagenham resurrection of that show. It was hastily put together, which I did, but I did get on tape. But by this time, I was kind of aware that there was kind of decent kind of like British wrestling product that you could follow week to week. It was more than American wrestling live in your town. It was storylines, it was characters, it was something you could actually get your teeth into and follow from show to show. So the first one I actually went to was something you covered a few episodes ago, I should say. It was Revival. So that was the one that actually so by this point, I'd already been starting getting the FWA tapes. So I was the Portsmouth TV series and things that you guys have been very ably covering over the past few months. So I'd seen all that. It was time to go and see some actual proper British wrestling myself. But you're very much right. FWA was different. It was a bubble. The rest of it was almost still kind of American wrestling live town hall shows in these ancient kind of world sport things still. It was a lot of kind of like
it was lots of companies that were proud to be British but advertised themselves as American Wrestling Live and bashed the FWA for being an American influenced product and not seeing any kind of issue with that. It was a very, very weird sort of hypocritical scene, I think, in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely, and quite hypocritical as well. Quite a lot of the FWA wrestlers were also getting booked on these shows. Every other weekend as well. But yeah, it was like really old-fashioned looking rings in fully lit sports halls. Not a lot to get, and then to pack up and go and do the same show again somewhere else the next day or the next weekend.
Yeah.
And once you'd seen it, you kind of seen it. There wasn't a lot to kind of follow. But FWA was different when you first saw it on the screen. It looked differently. It had kind of like the branded ring. It had the barriers that you'd see on kind of like your American wrestling that you'd watch on the telly. The big fancy entranceway and things that was different. There was pyro going off on people's entrances. That was different. Like custom theme songs and things. Yeah, it was something that stood out. It was something that was worth going to go and check out.
Yeah, it kind of felt a bit like more like a polished package, didn't it? I'm saved the most important question till last. Why the hat?
Well, okay, because I'm a twat basically. But when I was first starting seeing those FWA tapes, this was kind of my like first experience of kind of like seeing a modern British product, and kind of you'd see the regular fans there. They'd be all dressed up in the front row. They'd wear the same things. They'd have like kind of these like nicknames. I think there was like Wolfman and Captain Donut and things like this. And you'd see them guys in the front row of the shows every single time wearing the same clothes. And I thought, so it's kind of, you know what it's like. It's kind of a bit like ECW that you'd been seeing. You'd always see the same people in the same place every time. It was kind of that mixed with kind of thinking that the wrestling was almost like this kind of like, you know, like if you went to go and see darts at the lakeside and stuff, you'd see the people in the fancy dress. I thought it was that kind of thing, so I thought, I'm going to try and get involved in this kind of fun kind of approach. I mean, I was already using the UK Hat Guy kind of nickname on forums and things by that.
Oh, so that came first before the actual hat.
I actually started on kind of online gaming on the Dreamcast, the old Sega Dreamcast. That was my kind of use. It's purely inspired by the fact I'd watched WCW Halloween Havoc on videotape, 92 on videotape that morning. Saw the Philadelphia Hat Guy in the front row and just thought, Hat Guy. So then when it came to actually starting to see shows, like I went to Revival. I didn't wear a hat there, but then I was going to like bigger UK shows that year as well. And I was traveling to see kind of. There was a John Farrar show in Preston that drew very much the same type of audience. That wore a hat. Dan Reed had a show with Low Key on in Ipswich that summer as well. I went to that as well. So when I was starting to get out and about to these shows, you kind of like seeing the same people here and there and everywhere. So that kind of just became. I thought, well, I'm going to actually start wearing this hat.
And same gimmick in every territory.
Yeah, it's going to kept it on for a few years. This because I was a bit of a knob.
Clearly just working the rounds around the territory, brother. Clearly just working the rounds around the territory.
And then once it was super over, he changed the gimmick.
Well, once that dropped.
So, do you still got it, or has it fallen to pieces by now?
It fell to bits a long time ago.
I was very disappointed, I'll not lie, when I was expecting Ben to come up and have the hat, and I was like, oh... Then I remembered it's about such a long time ago. It clearly probably is destroyed somewhere.
So 2003 was arguably the FWA's best year when it came to match quality, show quality, critical acclaim. but there was no TV, which sort of goes against the hook of this show. So we are using a loophole to cover this. And that loophole is, if we don't, we're jumping a full year from Uprising 1 to Uprising 2. And most of that episode will be me explaining all the stuff we're going to cover on this episode. Our 2003, though, is actually going to begin in October 2002, 12 days after British Uprising, with a show called London Calling. So it's October the 25th. We're in Walthamstow. Just going to run through kind of like the major points of the show. Whether you consider this major or not, I don't know. But I think it's important to introduce a character for later on. After some feuding in the year over Cammy, as the Duke of Danger's potential maid, the Duke beats Jack Xavier in a match where the loser has to leave the FWA for 6 months. And so I put together a little playlist of stuff that I sent out to everybody to watch before this. And the first thing was a little segment I found when I was watching one of the VHS tapes to introduce the character, because we haven't seen the Duke yet on our run. So it was a little thing they shot. It's on the No Surprises 4 VHS as a flashback, but it's shot in June at Walthamstow. And I titled it The Duke Wants a Maid. And when I first saw this, I'd never seen it until this year, and it made me piss myself. So the Duke of Danger was like this sort of like thuggish aristocrat character, and he has his faithful but downtrodden butler manservant Simmons. They've arrived in the FWA in early 2002. Duke was a Dropkicks trainee, which was Tony Scarlow's school in London, by the name of Dane Hardy. And Simmons was obviously Andy Simmons from the Mark Sloan Academy in Portsmouth. And they're this fun little comedy undercard act who quickly outgrew their slot, as we will discuss later. But in this thing, so Duke has decided he wants a maid, and they're in the forum, the foyer of Walthamstow, and he approaches Cammy, Jack Xavier's squeeze, and with the command of Simmons, the wallet, asks her what she's worth, £5, £10. She slaps him, and as he goes for her, and the bit that cracked me up was before he goes for her, Simmons takes half a step forward with a clenched fist like he's going to belt her, as if that was ever going to happen. But as Duke goes for her, Jack Xavier arrives on the scene and the posh lads back off. And then we cut to later in their locker room. Jack realises he's left some of his gear in the car, and after he leaves to get it, Simmons and the Duke knock on the door and ambush Cammy. Simmons, get to the car! And they peg it out of the building with Cammy over the Duke's shoulder, bundle her into the boot of a bright red Vauxhall Corsa, which I believe was Andy Simmons' actual car, and speed off out of the car park. Like I said, this cracked me up when I first saw it. And what was interesting, at the time, I wasn't into the Duke of Danger and Simmons. Like, the name I thought was stupid to start with, the Duke of Danger. And these cartoony characters were really out of keeping with the rest of the roster, who are these sort of like non-gimmicked wrestlers. And this kind of comedy skit doesn't really happen again until we get to the Mark Sloan and Stevie Knight tag team in 2004. Yeah, so I'll start with Eddie. What do you think of your first look at the Duke and Simmons?
I thought this was some brilliant college or school drama production acting. I loved the fact there was one of those phones that had like the kind of covering around it and stuff like that, because you don't see them anymore.
Oh yeah, the payphone with the with like the hood. Yes. Yeah.
This was. I can see why Simmons gets over, because obviously as we kind of went along this playlist, anytime that music plays, the crowd just goes nuts and mainly just chants for Simmons. It feels like the Duke of Danger is kind of like it's one of those names that kind of feels out of place with obviously what the whole FWA seems to be, but I think the whole thing kind of works. I enjoyed this. Jack saying that he forgot something in the car, and then obviously we go to the parking lot and they've taken away Cammy. Where were you, Jack?
And Jack Xavier is nowhere to be seen in the car park. Yeah.
Where did you park your car? All the way out there? No, I thought this was really fun. It was again, I think as the playlist goes along, I really did enjoy Hampton Court and the stuff that we watched from it.
They kind of had instant chemistry. But I think later on, like once Simmons starts getting over, they kind of have to fight to like keep the Duke as part of the act and keep him relevant, because he could have easily gotten just buried under that deluge of popular. We'll discuss how that came about later on. Do you like the Duke of the Butler, Andy?
Well, I was sort of used to the stuff with Simmons when he does come popular.
Yeah. Oh, so you've seen that kind of stuff before.
At the time.
Yeah.
But watching this, the acting is very much say you like a Channel 5 drama, but with a Benny Hill theme at the back of it. When you were saying about the name, the Duke of Danger, just give me thoughts of the Phantom Raspberry Blower off Ronnie Barker, that sort of name. I didn't realise it was the Walthamstow Assembly Halls. I thought it was the inside of an Ibis budget hotel. It
Same thing.
Looked very run down, and
it didn't look good.
The make of the car. What do you say? We're a Vauxhall Corsa.
A Vauxhall Corsa, yeah.
I thought it was a mini Metro.
It might as well have been.
It might as well have been. My dad had one of those. He bought from Manchester Evening News, and it broke down in 6 months. Was £1,000 he ever spent.
I discovered during my research there has been a second Duke of Danger. In 2019, a guy named Dan Evans or Dan Schwartz in the US used the name for NEW in Connecticut. I have no idea if he had a butler, though. This is the original. So just quickly, Cammy disappears not long after this, and Duke's actual maid is a young lady named Buttercup. Put your eyes back in your heads, lads. She is just 18 at this point. She is also an academy trainee by the name of Jenna, and I believe she was Raj Ghosh's girlfriend for a couple of years during all this. Also on this show, the UK Pitbulls debut a new hardcore look and then promptly lose the tag title to a returning Alex Shane and his new partner, now babyface Ulf Herman, in a weapon-filled brawl. And then in the main event, Jody Fleisch loses the FWA title that he won less than 2 weeks ago to Christopher Daniels in a 3-way match also featuring Doug Williams, which we watched.
Yep.
Anybody got any pertinent thoughts on this match?
Yeah, Doug Williams has got that American wrestler body. He's had the needles up the arse, hasn't he? There was also,
I'll call the lawyer.
There was a lad as well. When they were making their entrances on stage, there was just like this big 6-foot figure at the back of the stage just waving his arm.
Oh, yeah. I was really surprised. There were just fans hanging out on the stage.
Yeah.
Ben's making a face like he was one of them. Were you one of them?
No. I didn't go to the show. I didn't go to the show. I mean, this show was obviously just less than 2 weeks after Uprising, so
yeah, it's a bit much to ask for another trip 2 weeks after, is it?
London. And it was the day before. I was in Manchester the day after for WWE Rebellion with Edge against Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman. So no, I didn't make it to London Calling.
I was at this one.
I enjoyed this match. It was really quite good. Fleisch seems to be plagued with injuries consistently. I mean, I don't know whether I'm assuming this was obviously. Have I been worked here clearly? I'm thinking.
Oh, we've got a believer.
If he's doing that, yeah, brother, shoot. Daniels is great. I mean, obviously we've seen Daniels on the thing before, but this was great. I really enjoyed this. Again, I think every match we saw during this playlist, I don't think any of them missed at all, really. Maybe one.
The general level of the in-ring was very high at this point, and I wasn't going to send you any shit anyway. So I picked and chose good stuff to send you and important stuff to send you rather than just, here is Raj Ghosh versus Ian De Silva from some fucking show in the middle of nowhere.
Before this, you sent an advert for British Uprising that made me want to join a cult because it kept repeating FWA at the end of it. Join the Navy here. I was like, fuck
Yvan Eht Nioj.
Eddie, when you're talking about cults, there was a lad who was ready to join the BMP in the front door with his Union Jack lad shirt.
I know who that is. I don't think he's particularly BMP.
You see what I mean? All this dressing up thing that people would do. People dress up to stand out, to be noticed, to be part of the fun. Yeah.
Yeah. I called this match sort of like the dad version of the Uprising opener. Mm-hmm. That was these three lads had seen what their sons had done a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to show them how to do it properly. There was loads of really good three-way spots that I liked. Daniel's going to run Jody into you think he's going to like run him down the apron into the turnbuckles, but instead hoists him over into a splash on Doug, who's on the floor. Really nice. Williams having Fleisch in his inverted gory special, using Jody's feet to hit Christopher Daniels, and then trying, and unfortunately not succeeding, to put Daniels in a Boston Crab while keeping that hold on Jody. Yeah. Like, really creative, and unfortunately it doesn't quite come off.
Kieran, did you see the wheelbarrow spot that Doug did, but he was just basically booting Jody in the head?
Oh, yeah, that was the other one I wrote. Yeah, so he's kind of got him in a handstand position, and he's kicking away at his collarbone, and then Daniels drop kicks Jody through Doug's legs and rolls him up.
Yeah.
So the bit that worked, Eddie, about 10 minutes in, Jody does his springboard shooting star to the floor and grabs his leg. He gets carted out as Williams and Daniels continue one-on-one, and honestly, it's never a bad idea to have those two wrestle each other. We've seen it several times now.
Yeah.
I love the way they work the one-on-one section. It's really smart. They're working like they're trying to win. And the only rest hold of the match is Daniels puts a chin lock on for 20 seconds so the crowd get a chance to look at what's happening with Jody on the stage, where he's being held back by the referees and the officials.
I don't know if it were only me here, but I put on my notes Mick, Fleisch and Jody Foley, because it was basically Mick Foley. Let me add them.
There was a young Ross Jordan holding them back on the stage there as well.
Yes, indeed.
And I like the way as well that Alex Shane came out as well to try and let everybody think this is a shoot, he's really injured. Because, of course, at this point, people knew that Alex Shane was kind of like the boss.
Yes, his official title was Managing Director, I do believe.
But that had never been actually acknowledged on the shows. So the fact that he was there was kind of like making you think, well, actually, there's something a bit real here. But,
yeah, so Jody comes back to the stage and he's held back by Andrew Coyne and LSR as the other two exchange a load of cradles. It's like he knows his title is in jeopardy. And then when Doug hits the Revolution DDT, he breaks free and he rushes to the ring to break up the pin. He throws Doug out the ring, but lands badly going for a leaping spin kick on Daniels, who hits the Angel's Wings and scores the pin to win the title. And this was kind of supposed to be a massive shock. This was the least expected course of action. Like, the newly crowned babyface has been dethroned by a visitor. But Daniels then gets on the mic and tells the crowd and the FWA to kiss his ass in his post-match promo, and the crowd pop huge for it. It's so funny.
I think Daniel seems to be like one of those characters, at least from what we've seen so far, where because of how good he is in the ring and how kind of charismatic he is,
the thing.
He can't be booed. Like, he can try all he wants, and obviously when we watch the Ring of Honor one, that's very easy for him to get booed there. But just here, they're just like, fuck yeah, we get to see a Ring of Honor TNA guy.
See, this is as we were, like Ben and I were saying, like, this is the difference between the FWA and outside the FWA. Outside, if you did this in All-Star, like, he would be the American heel. But here, like, these are the smart fans who recognize talent and they want to cheer talent. Yeah. So we quickly move into November 2002, where absolutely nothing happens. So let's just say this is where our old friend Vicky Demonfort departs. She is gone. We don't never see her again. The commissionership of the FWA is vacant. This is where I'm also going to chuck in that Uprising ad you were talking about, Eddie. I don't know if it actually got released here, but this is the first piece of editing I did for the FWA.
So you wanted people to join the FWA call at the end?
Yes, right, I did, because at that point I had. I don't remember if I was asked to do it or if I volunteered. I do remember I wasn't paid for it, so I was definitely in the cult. But I didn't care at that point. Like, I was a big fan of the company. And, you know, I was now inside. I was in wrestling. I was doing... I'd done camera work for them in September, and now I was doing editing stuff. I
liked how you cut it so that every time it said F, there was a big impact on it, of a big move. So it's F.
Of course.
Of course. Or a big slam or something going on.
The only thing I remember is that I didn't want to use any shots that weren't in the final edit of the show, because that would be sort of like disingenuous advertising in my like 23-year-old brain or whatever it was. And I just got LSR to send me the master tapes of the edit and cut it from that. And I remember, like, they looked at this and they were like, how has nobody done this before? Like, nobody had thought to approach their product like it was. At this point, like, independent music videos were popular. Like Maynard music videos and those kind of things of like independent wrestling action set to songs. And nobody had thought to do that for the FWA, least of all use it for advertising purposes. So this is how I ended up with a job later on.
I would say, Kieran, I'll give you credit here. Nice syncing with the pyro. Would you say that's your greatest bit of work ever?
No.
Looking the mic drop on the pyro.
I think next month we're going to talk about what is probably my lasting legacy in British wrestling.
Just on the one thing that always used to bug me about that FWA theme song.
Yes.
FWA was always a South Coast company, Southeast London company.
Yeah.
The pronunciation
Dooble-U.
FWA was always Northern /
Yeah, it's because it's Ralph and he's from Birmingham and he would say Dooble-U.
So you get all the actual FWA fans. It'd sound like FWA.
Exactly. Yeah.
The shows, but of course, the song was completely different.
Yeah. No, nobody ever thought to re-record this.
Welcome to FWA. Yeah.
Yep. So December, around the 10th or so, the TalkSport show gets cancelled. No more national radio for Alex to push the FWA.
Aww.
December the 15th, Broxbourne Civic Hall, Seasons Beatings. This is a round-robin tournament featuring Doug Williams, Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm, and AJ Styles. The winner gets a shot at Christopher Daniels' title, quote, in America. And your scoring system is Starcade 89 style. So it's 20 points for a pin or submission, 15 for a DQ or count-out, 10 each for a draw, and losses, of course, are 0. Should we cover the tournament matches and then we'll cover the other stuff outside? So the VHS release was only the tournament matches, and the whole tape is 83 minutes long. I believe, at the very least, they only sold it for £8 at the time.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing as Uprising, wasn't it? You fit it onto a 90-minute tape
because they're cheaper.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
The intro that we got from this with Johnny Storm talking in a mirror and then Doug and is like all of them all turning up in that one area.
It's very silly. It's very silly. So Storm is doing a promo in a mirror, which he would do quite a lot actually. Now I think about it, it's just as he gets to bad mouthing Doug Williams, Doug walks around the corner, catches him, and chews him out. He then starts spouting off about AJ Styles just as AJ walks out of the dressing room behind him. And so AJ gets in Doug's face. And then, of course, as AJ mentions Jody Fleisch, he appears. And they all have a Barney and a shoving match. And the referees separate them.
It's very similar to Revival, that. Because when there were
the locker room.
Drew McDonald.
Yeah.
Flagging off people. And then his opponent's just over there.
Yes. Yeah. Where Jody Fleisch looks pathetic by being carried out of the room by a single referee. Yeah.
I liked it. I think there's definitely some cheesy acting going on in there, but I think the fact that it's 4 goodies that are going to be having, theoretically 6 goodie versus goodie matches. I thought it was a way of introducing a bit of needle between them, a bit of that competitive intensity. So I like that.
I think I do like the moment where it's say the person's name and they appear obviously quite with everything that's going on in the moment.
I believe in Jody Fleisch, Johnny Storm, AJ.
I believe in these 4. But I think it's quite good, obviously, if that's the opening of the DVD to show kind of how
he thinks it's a DVD. Isn't that sweet and young
VHS.
of him?
Sorry for being young. You old
this was horrible quality magnetic tape in a plastic case, my friend.
I know. But the showing on the VHS for this opening for it, this is quite good because I said it builds kind of to what you're looking for, and what you get from it is sheer brilliance from this whole tournament.
I saw your tweet. You were quite a fan of this, weren't you?
This is quite possibly the best tournament in British wrestling history, as far as I'm concerned.
I mean, all the matches are really good, I think.
Yeah.
There's not a dud among them. The first one is Johnny Storm versus Doug Williams. I think this is better than the Johnny and Doug match we saw on the Portsmouth TV shows, which was good. I noticed that Broxbourne was packed. There were people even sitting on the steps here. The only time I remember it being more full than this was an AJ return in 2004, where they had to have standing as well as all the seats full. I think they had to have a word with the fire marshal that day. The only note I have on this match is the sequence leading into the finish, which is fantastic. So Storm gets a 2 count off a double jump Hurricane Rana and then goes for the super rewind. Doug blocks it, hoists him up into powerbomb position, then flips him off onto his feet. Williams goes to the Revolution DDT, but Storm slips out, whips him back into the corner, and hits the Super Rewind for the pin. That sounded very complicated. It all went perfectly. And we've talked about how hit or miss the Super Rewind Hurricane Rana can be. Every time he went for it on this show, he nailed it, though.
I think what we've said as well is if he's in there with a worker who knows what to do, then it works fine. Whereas he's done it with like, he did it with like, I don't know if he did it with the Castanos or something like that, but he did it on one of the shows and it was just awful, and it just clearly just didn't work. So it seems like with this it worked. By the way, the intro to this entire thing, where it's like the creepy child singing the Christmas song. After that kid needs to give up singing. I do enjoy that there's cheers for FWA, but there's boos for Broxbourne.
Well, you've not been to Broxbourne, have you, Eddie?
No, I've never been.
Shithole, mate. Absolute shithole.
There are nicer towns. Not many better wrestling venues in this country, though, I think. Like, Broxbourne is so perfectly set up for wrestling. I've always called it, like, mini Corrigan Hall. Like, it's the same, but, like, 1/4 the size.
There's a reason why everybody kept running shows there, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Over that in that mid-2000s, it's like literally 450 seats in there. It's perfect viewpoints from anywhere in there.
Yeah.
In terms of traveling,
it looks good on camera.
It looks good on camera. In terms of travel, it's just off the A1 if you're traveling down from the north. It's just off the M25 if you're coming around from the southeast. It's 25 minutes out of Liverpool Street Station if you're coming through central London. It's perfect for wrestling on this level.
Yes, unfortunately, it's in Hoddesdon.
Yeah, it's on a street called Cock Lane, which
and it has seen its fair share of cocks in that building.
Yeah, and it's even funnier when you look at it on the actual map and you see that Cock Lane is actually shaped like a massive cock and balls. So there's a bit of Broxbourne trivia for you.
Kieran, not about Cock Lane, but there was a cock in this match, and he was on commentary. Nick London, who said "Good Dougie," like he was patting down Doug like a mutt.
Yes, yes,
dreadful.
I know. We've had to listen to a lot of these too. Hey, I watched more than the playlist. I watched everything. So I watched all of the shows we're covering snippets of. I watched in full, if possible. I've heard a lot of Tony Giles and Nick London.
I mean, commentary is hard, isn't it? It's
yes.
Quite often you're going to. The tendency for British commentators to almost like slip into an American accent and things and put over the top emphasis and stuff on as well, because that's what wrestling commentary is supposed to sound like. That's the commentary you sound on TV. So I credit to them for like trying to make it kind of uniquely British and throwing in like phrases like he's pissed him off and all this and like but it's especially on this particular show before they really start setting. Tony Giles is just the most dull, monotone, emotionless delivery.
I will say, one of the things I noticed over the course of watching all of these shows in 2003, I will not call him a good commentator, but he got a lot better once he started realising that wrestling could be emotional as well as technical. Because he's there, and what they tend to do is they tend to call everything. There are matches where they will call every punch, every forearm, and you don't need to do that. There's a story to tell. And once Tony figured that out, he got a lot better. And once he started, Eddie said when we did Uprising, like Doug Williams pins Jerry Lynn, and like Tony's call is, and Doug Williams has just pinned Jerry Lynn, or something like that. But then there's matches later on coming this year where he is like screaming and yelling for the baby faces to win. And I think that's much, much better.
Nick London, I think, goes it's too far the other way. He's trying too hard to be overly enthusiastic.
He's trying to be a heel. That's the problem.
He's trying to get that stupid effing WA catchphrase.
That one, and the other one that drives me up the wall is for some reason he says bloody sand a lot. What the fuck does that even mean? Does that mean 50 Cent has been around and with his PS2 game? Like, what is that? Who wants to bite my hand off and talk about Jody Fleisch versus AJ Styles?
Oh, yes, please.
Sorry, Eddie got his voice in first. Go on, buddy.
It was incredible. They are just on another level.
Yeah.
These two. And AJ, again, is like this is people who have seen. So AJ's only really been what, TNA really at this point, occasionally ROH, obviously those things.
WCW as well.
Yes, so Ring of Honor is less than 18 months old at this point.
This is him still getting at peak form, but being almost like top level AJ that we end up seeing in like 05, 06.
Yeah, he got it real quick.
They're just so good. They just work so well together. I think like AJ knows the right idea of like, this is what, if Americans come over to this country and want to kind of, see how an American can do so well and get themselves so over and adjusted, obviously, it's AJ and stuff like that, because they're just, these hands go nuts for him. This match is incredible. I don't have many notes. My phone has also died and they were all on there, but this is incredible. I loved it. It was great. I fucking love this tournament. It was so you can shove the UK Championship from Blackpool up its arse. This is the best tournament that I have seen. And it doesn't have any idiots in it.
There's a bit in this that it's kind of like, to all intents and purposes, it's a botch. They're doing a rope running sequence and they just kind of stop and look like neither of them knows which one is supposed to go next. But they managed to play it off like they're equals who've had the same idea at the same time. And you get a close-up of each guy and they're both beaming. They're having so much fun because they've each found someone who can keep up with what they can do.
It blew my mind as well, this match. Similar to Eddie. I know they didn't give the manoeuvre its proper name. The spinning fingy cutter by AJ, whatever.
Oh yeah, so it's a spinning diamond cutter, but he's got Jody's arm trapped over his shoulder as well. Yeah. Never seen it before or since.
It looked like he maybe had him in like what looks like some kind of cravat kind of thing. With the thing
and then
that's incredible. Why do people not do that now?
Yeah,
probably because it fucking hurts.
Yeah. But that's the thing. Like, this is AJ where he's not using the spiral tap. He's using the Styles Clash. He's using like these certain things, and he's great stuff that you look at and go, "Oh, that's incredible." Where does that come from?
One other thing I thought were incredible in this, where he were working on Jody's back with them fucking back breakers. There were power bomb rights at knee. It's just like fuck off.
Yeah.
And but Jody bends like Homer Simpson on that
on the fire hydrant. Yeah. This hurts even more than it looks.
As well, just thinking about AJ Styles and a bit of health and safety here. Usually, during PE classes at high school, you get told to remove your jewellery.
He's got a branch of Tiffany's on, hasn't he?
Oh, yeah, dangly earrings like Pat Butcher, this fella.
I'm just imagining Pat Butcher trying to attempt a Styles Clash now.
Abdullah The Pat Butcher.
Abdullah The Pat Butcher. I cannot say anything more about how good this was. Again, it's incredibly clear that, again, as we've discussed before, the main talent, this is like 3 of the main FWA talents that we've talked about, the ones that are in a class above, if we had a tier system, they're in the A tier of this company. And then you're putting them in with AJ Styles and X to be named later and stuff, and obviously things that happen. And it's clear that they work so well with these guys. And it's a reason why you put your best people with the imports. You don't.
Yeah. I think they realised over the course of this year, like, there was a gulf between Jody, Johnny and Doug and everybody else.
Yeah.
And they do try and redress that balance as the year goes on. But yeah, they're clearly a class apart.
I mean, for my money, this is probably the best match. Well, it's up there amongst the best matches you'll ever see in FWA.
Yes,
sorry guys.
I think you're right.
2 years of podcast.
But I think we still get plenty of good stuff.
But no, I don't think there was ever an opening 1-2 matches on an FWA show as good as these 2 that you get on here either. As well, it's the perfect punch. I mean, it's the match. It's just big move after big move after big move. But it doesn't look like they're following like a gymnastics routine or anything. It looks like they're trying to hurt each other. It looks like they're actually trying to break each other in half. There's like a nastiness and an intensity to it.
If there is a story, it's AJ is trying to very creatively brutalize Jody's back. And that's the thread that they hang all of this other stuff on, including like the setup to the physical highlight. Again, another move I've never seen before or since. Jody hits a version of the 720 DDT while Styles is sat a third of the way along the top rope, and it goes perfectly. I think this isn't quite as slick as the Storm and Williams match, but it has an elevated athleticism and creativity that doesn't have. The end is Jody goes for the springboard Rana, gets caught, power bombed, and in one fluid motion, hauled up into the Styles Clash and pinned. Lovely. So good.
The tape of this show didn't actually come out for another 6 months. It came out in May the following year. Because I remember it was first available to buy at Frontiers of Honor the following year, which was in May.
Wow!
And I remember going to the Fan Slam night, and they were playing it on the big screens there. And AJ came and sat. That match was on. This match here was on the big screen, and AJ came and sat at our table, and we were kind of watching it with him, and he was still kind of reacting. You could tell he was really proud of the match because he was just like reacting to it, and almost like it was popping him. So yeah, it's a fantastic match. I think there is one better to come in the future years, but for me, it's an entirely different type of match, and you'll
yes, I'm well aware of some of your favourites of this company. Johnny Storm versus Jody Fleisch, 8 minutes of insanity. Like the very first move is Storm hitting the super rewind, and then Jody comes back with the 720 DDT. They literally throw themselves at each other.
He was like Paul Heyman had turned up backstage in Broxbourne and was right, lads, I'm booking this. Spam the finishers.
I went slightly more sophisticated than that. I likened it to, it's a double-length, messier version of those Kenta and Ricky Marvin sprints. Mm-hmm. You know, when they go balls to the wall for 4 or 5 minutes. This was that, but for 8 minutes.
Ricky Marvin and Kenta, 3 minutes of absolute heaven. This feels also like if when you played one of the WWF SmackDown games and you put everyone on 5 finishers to begin with, and you went, right, well, we're just going to hit them first, and then we're going to see where our body lies, and then we'll just go from there.
There's another spot in this match I've never seen before or since, and the camera angle isn't good, and Tony Giles calls it out for not being a good angle. Jody has Johnny on the top rope for a Hurricane Rana. Storm pushes him directly back and then leaps out and spears him in midair. Beast Mortos, if you're listening to this, please steal this move. I thought this was a fucking brilliant spot. Storm also does an amazing double jump Poison Rana in the corner. Fantastic. So they also trade finishers. So Jody tries the super rewind, doesn't do it great, so Storm kicks out. Johnny does a version of the 720, Jody kicks out. They spill out to the floor. Jody gets the 720 off the railings and wins by count out. Doug Williams versus Jody Fleisch. They tell the story that this is Jody's last match of the tournament, so he's going hell for leather. He's had one loss and only a count-out victory. So the maximum number of points he can score, the maximum number of points he can finish on is 35, so he needs a pinfall. A handsome young cameraman runs for his life as Jody flattens the barricade with Doug's body. No idea who that was. Very good-looking boy, though. And then gets pressed into the crowd. They fight up one side of the bleachers and down the other. Halfway down, Williams gets flung off over the side, and then Fleisch comes off the very top of the seating with a moonsault. That's my camera shot. So I was sat on the floor as far back against the wall as I could get with my lens as wide as it would go, and the fucker still managed to flip out of the top of the frame.
I can't remember where it was, but I'm pretty sure there was one image where I was like, I'm pretty sure that is Kieran when I was looking for the kind of shots. I'll need to pick where it was, but yeah.
So LSR was ringside camera for the first half of the show, and I was ringside for the second half.
Oh, okay.
The other one I think was probably Russ, who is, if you ever saw like a large bald black guy with a camera with a big matte box on the front of the camera, that's a guy called Russ.
Right.
Really, really good cameraman, impossibly strong, and I had to tell him to stop holding his camera over his head because he was making the wrestlers look too small. The end of this one, as in the AJ match, comes with when Jody tries a springboard Rana. He defies the powerbomb counter and goes up over the top into a sunset flip, the same way he pinned Doug to win the tournament at Revival. But this time, He only gets a 1 count before Williams reverses it into a jackknife cradle for the 3, and Jody is mathematically eliminated, and the other 3 are all on 20 points. Again, another great match. Like, you kind of become numb. You get like great match fatigue, I think, watching this. Like, on the night, it's split up by other stuff, but...
Well, yeah, I was kind of looking at the stuff that had kind of went in between it and was wondering, what did these poor bastards have to deal with in between?
We'll cover that. There's some important stuff that happens in between, believe it or not.
Yeah. In reality, there'd been like an interval and another match between this one and that one. But
Jody wasn't doing like 2 matches back to back like that.
That's 3 Jody matches in a row. This tape is almost like a best of Jody Fleisch tape.
This is his reel. Like, this is what he's sending out to other companies.
Kieran,
yes.
Just a couple of things. Just to go back to the Johnny and Jody thing.
All right.
Was Johnny Storm a big X-Pac fan?
You mentioned his resemblance to X-Pac every time.
I do.
We've discussed this.
I must do, because...
Yeah, I think I called him Essex Pac at some point.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I also said at one point, does he have a role on those fake WWF shows as fake 1-2-3 Kid X-Pac?
Yeah.
Because
it wouldn't surprise me. He'd do anything for a $5.
Because he did the top rope, like, spinning heel kick. I was like, fucking X-Pac again. The Doug and Jody match, obviously the fucking moonsault he did off the bleachers, unbelievable. But the move that Jody does on the apron to Doug, the catapult, lads, that move is the most contrived move going. It just looks fake.
Well, you know, it's
wrestling. I know, but it looks silly.
So, Jane Charles tells us that as a result of the 720 on the floor, Johnny Storm has withdrawn from the tournament due to injury. For some reason, this doesn't mean that AJ wins their scheduled rematch via forfeit and he remains on 20 points, effectively making the final match winner take all. It also means the FWA has screwed everyone out of the implicitly advertised rematch of the best match of the year. Cheeky bastards.
The tournament just descends into bollocks at this point. So yeah, you've got it's a collection of good matches, but as a tournament, it's disappeared into bollocks.
Yeah, the booking, the matches are great. The booking is stupid. Eddie is about to explode. I'm going to run through my bait and switch as they did anyway. Doug Williams versus AJ Styles, first time ever. 2 things that made me laugh at the start. You can hear Doug say, I'm going to go this way this time, as he makes his entrance and circles around the ring. And you can also hear that LSR has left in the commentary sync word. So at this time, there was no recording commentary into a computer as it's playing a video file back. Your computer would explode. Instead, the commentators would watch a tape and record into this quite fancy live CD burner gimmick that Ralph had. And to sync it up, one of the commentators would say the last word of the MC's intro along with them on the tape. And this time, Tony Giles just going, Williams, gets left in the edit before he starts doing the commentary. So they're about to lock up when, hey, Jerry. Yep, Jerry Lynn's music plays, and out he comes dressed to wrestle. He had been advertised as making, quote, a special appearance, and was like, he was out in the lobby signing stuff and selling gimmicks at the interval. He has a mic, and he tells a story about suffering an injury at the hands of AJ Styles, with whom he is feuding in TNA. And he says he was supposed to be in the tournament, and after injuring him, Styles called up the FWA and swiped the booking off him. He says he's here and he's feeling fine, and he wants to be put back in the tournament and have this be a 3-way dance. Surely, if he was here and feeling fine, he should have been put back in the tournament at the beginning, and it'd be a 5-man round robin. That would have 4 more matches, though, and they wouldn't have finished it till January. So LSR hits ringside, and as the only FWA official until they announce a new authority figure in the new year, announces it will indeed be a 3-way final. Everybody here leaves out the crucial detail that Lynn is Storm's substitute, so takes his already 1 points and comes in with 20 despite not doing anything. I can see I can see 2 shaking and 1 nodding.
It's easy shift for Jerry. Easy shift.
It's like gladiators, isn't it? Like
And AJ is supposed to have 2 matches left, so AJ is supposed to have 2 chances to win more points.
I know. Yeah.
Jerry Lynn is a fresh person. They don't bother actually explaining any of this to any of you, so it's complete.
No. We will frequently come across like holes like this in what appears to be otherwise clever booking. So we get Doug Williams versus AJ Styles versus Jerry Lynn. To be fair, this is the only time this match combination has ever happened. And much like all the other tournament matches, it's a creative, high-energy sprint of a thing.
Yeah.
One of the highlights is the crazy amount of smoke from the entrances setting off the fire alarm. And the wrestlers just carry on, and the entire crowd erupts into a chant of, "We're not leaving until it gets switched off." And that, as Ben was kind of alluding to earlier on, that was the kind of sense of community that there was among the fan base at that point.
If we're going to die, we're going to die together.
Yeah. Half, 2/3 of this crowd are off the UKFF, maybe all of them. Like, so we all like know each other through screens and stuff. It was like 400 mates would just meet up every month.
Is it just on that? Yeah, I mean, that going back to that Jody and Doug match where they fight up through the crowd, just the amount of people I recognize. Yeah, I recognize him. I recognize him. I know who that is. I know who that is. I mean, there's a lot of like early 2000s haircuts and fashion, but yeah, the amount of familiar faces in there was just I recognize at least 50% of those people.
Yeah. This one I think is a bit more 2 in 1 out than the other 3 ways we've talked about recently, but it moves so fast that you hardly notice. And honestly, I don't think there's any way that any combination of these 3 wrestlers is going to be bad unless they're doing it on purpose. There's only one spot that doesn't go quite right, and that's when Lynn catches AJ's kick and backflips him supposedly into the moonsault DDT onto Doug, and they don't quite get it. I need to have a word with our guest about his outfit on this show, because it looks for all the world like he's wearing a safari suit under the free front row t-shirt and the big hat on top. You talked about some fashions there, Ben. What was going on?
Big game hunter, that's what I was doing there. It's early 2000s, so I was naturally wearing a pair of chinos like everybody else was wearing in the early 2000s. And I was, shirt, like a quite nice shirt. But then for some reason, when I got the free T-shirt, which came as part of the, should probably explain that the actual front row tickets for this show were £35, I think. So it was kind of following on from what they'd done with Revival. It was like a gold package. So for front row, you got your front row seat, you got a T-shirt, you got a poster, and so they give you your free T-shirt, and I decided to put it on top of the shirt I was already wearing. And for some reason pulled the actual collar of my shirt out, so it's like sticking over the collar of the free T-shirt as well. So.
I can just imagine Ben being like Joey in Friends, where he decides to wear all the shirts and stuff like that if he ever gets the time with the amount of freebies. But one thing I did want to ask, and I said this to Kieran and Andy, I was going to ask this, because obviously there's a lot about pricing of wrestling shows at this moment in time currently being talked about. Like, how much was tickets for FW at the time? What is the pricing like compared to now for those shows?
You could get into an FWA show. If you were general tickets, you could get in for a tenner. £9-10. And then your front row, I think there was a silver package as well, which was a bit more.
Yeah, they would generally do gold package, silver package, general admission. Yeah,
and then gold was £35. That £35. I mean, it's less than the York Hall shows, but £35 was seen as quite expensive for a wrestling show. Yeah, but they were always the first tickets to sell out.
I think they adjusted the pricing once they started promoting up north, because the northern promoters were like, they're not going to pay those prices around here, and like they knocked the tickets down a bit. But the bigger shows, it was like £35 front row at Broxbourne or £50 front row at York Hall, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think Morecambe was 20 quid in the end, but then they didn't do the T-shirts and stuff for the Morecambe shows.
Yeah.
But it was very expensive. But I think it's the Alex Shane idea that sell it and they will come. Premium price is a premium product.
Yeah, it worked. As we discussed when we did Uprising, it continues to this day. You know, it's the Rev Pro York Hall pricing model. It's most places' pricing model now. We'll finish out this match quickly. We run through a little sequence where Lynn Styles clashes AJ, Doug Cradle pile drives Lynn, and Styles Chaos Theory's Doug. AJ Styles' Chaos Theory is better than Doug Williams. It's fucking perfect. Even when he's doing other people's stuff for the first time, he is spot on. And then the finish is a steroid version of the Uprising opener. Doug has AJ set up for a top rope German suplex, but Lynn grabs him with a springboard twisting sunset flip off the middle to score the pin and win a tournament he wasn't in the first place.
What a shift for Jerry. Well done.
Yeah, 9 minutes work.
What am I being booked for? Signing autographs at interval, and then I'm working 9 minutes.
Yeah. So, as well as the tournament on this show, Fleisch Barker goes over Ulf Herman by DQ in what I remember as a decent match that I'm sure got released, but I can't find anywhere. James Ty comes up short in the All England title shot he won at Uprising, and Simmons-a-mania is born. So, it's Duke of Danger, Simmons, and Mark Sloan versus Chris Justice, Hayde Vanson, and Raj Ghosh. Burchill is supposed to do his customary undercard run-in and destruction job, but they either forgot to do the move to cue him, or he missed it because they kept going. Over 10 minutes over their allotted time. This 6-man tag went nearly 25 minutes on the night. To amuse themselves, the crowd decided to somewhat ironically cheer everything Simmons did, but the next month, and the month after, and the month after, the irony stopped, and they were just cheering for Simmons, and an undercard comedy butler character became the most over act in the whole company.
So that's what it was. The match was crap. It just, as you say, it was going on and on and on.
Yeah.
I think the cue could have been as well, actually, because there's a bit where, following on from what we were just actually talking about earlier, a masked man called the Masked Mysterious JX runs
we will
out,
get to JX very soon.
Kidnaps Buttercup in this match.
How do you remember this?
I may have read a certain book recently as well, which had that. So there's a masked man. So Jack Xavier, we had lost the loser leaves for 6 months match against Duke, but the masked JX, which is kind of like, the Mr. America Midnight Rider type thing, it's Jack Xavier. Everyone knows it's Jack Xavier.
Yes.
The heels can't prove it's Jack Xavier. So he runs out and he kidnaps Buttercup in the middle of this match as well. But the match itself went on and 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 on. And there was a hot tag and then it died off, and there was a hot tag and then it died off. Mm-hmm. And it just went on and on. And as Kieran was saying, it started off as a bit of fun to cheer the stupid cartoon comedy guy, like ironically, but it just, that's the crowd to entertain themselves, but it just took off and took off and took off. And as you'll see,
I think the tapes of this match are buried next to the ET cartridges in the desert. Like, I don't think anybody wants this to see the light of day ever.
Jesus.
And so finally, January 2003, January the 6th, big important date, not for reasons that Chris Jericho's wife would be interested in. British Uprising Part 1 is released on VHS. It's announced via the website that the main event of New Frontiers in February will be Jerry Lynn versus Doug Williams to clean up the mess left at the end of season's beatings. The story goes that Johnny Storm claimed he never spoke to Jerry Lynn about having his points reassigned, so Elazar had no right to give them to him and put Jerry in the match. And Williams claims he was pinning AJ Styles at the same time Jerry Lynn was pinning him, which, if you watch it back, he is. He is holding tight onto that cradle. It is also announced that a new commissioner will be revealed at New Frontiers. And also on the 17th of January, FWA announces working relationship with America's XPW, including creation of a XPW European title. I'll read this verbatim. Frontier Wrestling Alliance is proud to announce that we have entered into a working relationship with America's Extreme Pro Wrestling. XPW is the US indie scene's fastest growing independent promotion and home to some of the most well-known and respected US indie talent, including Super Crazy, all one word, Chaos, Juventud Guerrera, and XPW champion Shane Douglas. Thank fuck he never came over. XPW is also the US home for FWA stars Jerry Lynn, Johnny Storm, and Zebra Kid. Really? With our new relationship, fans can expect to see an even larger number of American stars crossing the pond in an attempt to prove themselves in the FWA. Likewise, US fans can expect to see a number of FWA wrestlers making their foreign debuts. The flagship of this working relationship will be the XPW European title created in association with the FWA. The title will be defended throughout Europe, including defences in Ireland and Germany. Why specifically there? I don't know. However, the title's primary home will be in the FWA. Why is it not called the FWA European title then? XPW and the FWA will be holding an 8-man single elimination tournament. All of that has a capital letter at the beginning. Don't know why. To crown the first champion. FWA will hold their 2 first-round matches on Saturday, February the 8th in London at their FWA New Frontiers 4th anniversary show. Who titled it that? At Walthamstow Assembly Hall. As Zebra Kid battles Robbie Brookside. Can't you just see Robbie Brookside in fucking XPW? And Johnny Storm takes on Juventud Guerrera in, side note, the only match that was ever released from that show. XPW will present their half of the tournament in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania at the prestigious Viking Hall, which is ECW, one of the many names the ECW arena went under.
Kieran.
Hello.
XPW, wasn't it that Rob Black?
We will get into that.
I was going to ask, but you couldn't imagine Robbie Brookside in a porn film, could you?
Well, we'll cover some of this later on. So XPW's 2 first-round matches will take place on Friday night, February 14th, and the semi-final bout taking place the following night as part of XPW's My Bloody Valentine weekend. The FWA leg semi-final and tournament finals will be held on Sunday, March the 16th on the FWA's card at Broxbourne Civic Hall in Hoddesdon, Hertfordshire, where the first XPW European champion will be crowned. Fans in both countries will be able to watch all the tournament matches on their respective television programmes and videos. No streaming services in 2003. In addition, the title matches on FWA shows will be broadcast on XPW's weekly TV show. FWA dignitaries are expected to attend XPW's My Bloody Valentine weekend. I think that means Alex conned a flight out of somebody. Where an official contract signing will take place and the world's first true European title will be born. That was a mouthful, but that's all of January. And so, New Frontiers, Walthamstow, February 9th I've got here, but I think it was the 8th. This show was very much branded as a relaunch. So it was New Frontiers, new everything. The new authority figure is revealed as Legend of British Wrestling, Indiana Jones movies, and Auf Wiedersehen pet, Pat Bomber Roach. His title is Director of Operations, but unfortunately, despite still being massive, he is 66 years old, has all the mic presence of the lead character in the Werther's original advert, and has no idea about this product.
I'm not convinced he wasn't drunk.
He may well have been. WWE would steal this idea 15 years later for Johnny Saint, NXT UK Commissioner. As he is unable to attend every show, and in fact, I'm pretty sure this was his only appearance.
It was.
He presents his 2 lieutenants, representing the dark and the light of the FWA, Dino Scarlo and Justin Richards. Eddie's dead. We've lost Eddie. Quick sad note, Francis Patrick Roach Jr. would pass away from cancer just over a year later, which is why he was not on any more shows. We also get new rules. So the day before the show, the following were posted on the FWA website from the desk of TB Promotions. In light of my recent employment with the FWA, the new rules are as follows. To avoid pointless countouts and DQs. 1. The ring out count will be extended from 10 to 20. 2. A disqualification will be replaced with a yellow card. 3. Disqualification occurs when a second yellow card offence is committed or an offence merits an automatic red card. Yellow card offences. A. Use of closed fists, punching. B. Low blow. C. Gouging or raking of the eyes. D. Excessive hair pulling. E. Failure to release a hold within the referee's 5 count when an opponent is in or touching ropes. F. Failure to break a hold within the referee's 5 count when using the ropes illegally to gain leverage. G. Use of foreign objects. H. Abuse of the referee. I. Altering or defacing the wrestling ring, such as removing turnbuckle pads. The habitual breaking of these rules may lead to an automatic suspension. Cards are advisory and at the referee's discretion. 4. All FWA heavyweight title matches will now be fought under best of 3 falls rules.
Oh my word!
Andy, what's your favourite score in best of 3 falls matches?
Jim Smallman 2-1.
Yeah, how many of these matches do you think ended 2-1?
A fucking lot of them.
All of them.
All of them.
Every single one ended 2 falls to 1.
Honestly, Kieran, you reading out them rules there, it's just like, oh God, is this where the FWA just goes downhill?
It was trying to be different, wasn't it?
It was trying to be different. The red and yellow card thing was trying to make it more like football, more British, if you like. And it was also a nod back to public warnings a little bit as well.
The refs got new shirts and they wore trackies, black and white trackies.
So they did, yeah. No more Linsky in his chinos. He occasionally tucks the shirt in.
I think as we find out that maybe 20 20 years later, when even like NXT USA's doing it now, aren't they? With the Brit that still get the Heritage Cup, and it's shit, absolute shit.
Everybody always knew the matches were going to go 2-1, so you cannot get into the match until the final four.
Yeah. Don't forget also, the pile driver was also made illegal the previous year, so that's another rule to add on to all of this.
How are these referees going to remember these bloody rules? Sorry.
Oh, Jesus Christ. The wrestlers don't bother. Like, for example, Zebra Kid would just kick people in the bollocks and pile drive them anyway. He didn't give a fuck. And like Linsky had to watch a pile driver and then look the other way 5 seconds later like he hadn't seen it. It was really stupid. We get a new manager. The debut of Greg the Truth Lambert. He and Alex have been having a war of words online over Greg's apparent distaste for the FWA style of shows, and it was, of course, all a story to bring him in as a manager.
He was doing like the kind of like the heel wrestling journalist gimmick, wasn't
he? Yes,
so
he was.
I think his website was WrestlingX.com, I think, at the time.
Yes,
something like that. And so he'd been doing kind of, as you say, worked columns against each other, hadn't they? And so he'd been like shooting off against Alex Shane and vice versa.
Yes, Shane also had a column online called Shane's Shooting Gallery, which he'd used to kind of like mix fact and fiction to push FWA storylines. So there would be real stories from on the road, but they would then get worked into FWA stories.
And Lambert had been on the Talk Sport show a few times to kind of have this debate in person with Alex a few times as well.
Yeah.
And had Greg been in any wrestling before this, or is this just kind of his first foray?
No, this was his debut.
As a character, as a performer, this was his debut.
In the promo one of the ones you showed us in the playlist, he's very very good at what he's doing. So it's like he's taken to this real quick.
Yeah, he does. Also returning in this segment, John Farrar, who turns up the week after, and my notes now say, get Ben to explain the GWF ring incident, delight in Eddie's glee. I'm actually going to go and run and have a bath while Ben goes through this, because it might take a while.
Right.
Because Eddie has been pushing every single episode about Steve Linsky apparently stealing a ring. And Ben, I believe you were at the show that the ring did not arrive at. So if you would like to explain in whatever detail you would like to, the floor is yours.
I was in Blackburn. I wasn't at a show because the show didn't happen. So just keep it on New Frontiers. John Farrar comes out as Greg Lambert's kind of co-manager. The reason John Farrar is brought out is because of what happened about 1 week earlier, which is John Farrar at this point, he was a journalist. I think he was a writer for either Power Magazine or Wow Magazine or one of those kind of non-Power Slam magazines. So he had run a show. He'd started his own promotion, GWF, not the Jeff Jarrett one, GWF. It's a semi-successful debut show in Preston about 7 months earlier. It was like the previous summer, Preston Guildhall. About 50% of the people he originally advertised didn't turn up. So there's no Steve Carino, no Ron the Truth Killings. Taylor from Tough Enough was supposed to be there, but they didn't turn up. But what you actually got was quite a decent show. Jake the Snake Roberts was on that show. Little Guido was on that show. Trent Acid from CZW was on that show, and at the time that was quite popular. And so this was his follow-up. It wasn't in Preston anymore. This was in the King George's Hall in Blackburn. And he promised to bring in Trent Acid again. There was supposed to be Ian Knox, who was Trent Acid's tag team partner.
Johnny Cashmere.
Johnny Cashmere, who was Trent Acid's tag team partner. Ian Knox, who was also another kind of CZW undercard guy, he was coming in. Ian the Machine Freeman was there for the show as well, in some kind of like an enforcer role. There was Doug Williams, there was the UK Pitbulls, there was the aforementioned Jake the Snake Roberts was back again. The cream of the crop of kind of British wrestling. And so there's very much the sense that this John Farrar's GWF was very much trying to appeal to the same kind of fans as FWA was at the time. It's those internet-enabled, kind of smarter, hardcore fans who don't mind paying that bit of extra money, traveling the country to come and see a show that's kind of catered to their interests. Jake is quite central to this story, if you are to believe the reasons for what happened. From my own experience, we turned up. funny side note to this, there was supposed to be a Fans Bring the Weapons match between Iceman, kind of like our UK hardcore guy, and Ian Knox, the CZW style Fans Bring the Weapons match. But someone had tipped off the council this depravity was happening in Blackburn, and so so they had to change the advertising locally to it's a TLC match. But in actual fact, he was online on the forum saying, no, don't worry, it's still going to be a Fans Bring the Weapons match, still bring your weapons. So we got there on the day. There was a fan slam in the afternoon, but going into the fan slam, the police turned up and they were checking everybody's bags to make sure they weren't bringing any weapons and things in. So they're confiscating kind of sharps and things. So people with like pizza wheels were getting taken off people. Someone had a baking tray with drawing pins or super glue to it that got taken off people. Someone made a sword out of there's like a kid's building toy in the early 2000s called Kinect. Someone made a sword out of that got taken off them. But I managed to get in with a giant 1980s style top-loading VHS player. That was
would not be surprised with the bag that you tried to get into York Hall with in Uprising.
This VCR would not fit into that bag, I'll tell you that. It didn't have any drawing pins on it, but so yeah, we went into the fan slam. Ringside area set up, no ring. Got all our meet and greets, bought the programs, disappeared to the pub for a while after the fan slam, came back, massive queue outside the building, probably about 500, 600 people queuing down the street in Blackburn. The doors should have opened, they haven't opened. Farah comes out and says, don't worry, we've got a bit of a problem. The ring hasn't turned up yet. It's on its way. We'll let you go away to the pub for an hour. We're now opening the doors at, I think it was like an hour later, 8 o'clock or something. Okay, so we do that. Go to the pub, come back. Doors are open. Let inside. Still no ring. It's still not there. Go to the bar in the venue. Wait for about an hour. Still no ring. It's quite late now, about 9:30ish. Ted Robbins, the comedian, the Northwest comedian, Ted Robbins from
Den Perry.
Den Perry from Phoenix Nights. He's at the show. He's just watching it. He decides to.
He's just a punter.
He just as a punter.
Oh, wonderful.
He ends up on the stage doing a little routine to try and fill in time and entertain people while waiting for the ring, which is still supposedly, we are told, on its way.
Didn't someone have like a toy like wrestling ring and they put it in the middle of where the ring should have been?
Yeah,
there was even a photo of that made it to the UKFF, I remember.
Yeah, Den Perry gets Iceman's kid up on the stage, do a little song and dance routine with like a little sing along routine with him. That kid now actually wrestles Jack Harrop, so that makes me feel old. Still no ring. They bring out John Farrer and the Backseat Boys and Ian Knox to try and do a bit of talking and messing about. I think they're probably blitzed by this point. Trent Acid falls through a table, smashes John Farrer's glasses. Still no ring.
Don't worry, mate. Linsky's about 15 minutes away in the van. So don't allegedly. Don't worry, mate.
Well, eventually, we're probably gone past 10 o'clock now, as if the show's going to happen. But yeah, John Farrer gets on the stage, says, "Sorry guys, got to confirm that the show is not happening. The ring isn't here. It's not coming. The show's not happening." People turn angry. They start shouting for their refunds. The local people start heading down to the box office to get their tickets from their refunds from the ticket office. The people who bought online, such as myself, we're told there'll be an announcement in the morning to go and how to get your tickets back. No ring. So what has happened, kind of what's transpired, is that it was supposed to be FWA senior official and all-round British wrestling personality Steve Linsky was supposed to be the one bringing the ring, and it did not turn up. Now the story behind this is it goes back to Jake Roberts. So the ring they were supposed to be using, it's all about disputed ownership of this ring basically and owed debts. So this is how I understand it goes. So Jake was living over here, by the way, at this time. Jake was based in the UK.
Is that why he had that rugby shirt on at one? There's a picture of him with like
But he used
to live in St Albans. I was quite disappointed when I lived there. I never bumped into him.
He was always wearing like a very old looking shell suit whenever I saw him. But But yeah, so Jake had run a tour, about a 3 or 4 date tour in the south, in kind of like Essex and Kent, the previous year, called, I think it's Real Superstars of Wrestling, RSOW, Honky Tonk Man, Brutus Barber, Beefcake, Hacksaw Jim Duggan, and he'd had a 20 by 20 WWF Dimensions, WWE spec ring put together for this tour. John Farrar wanted to book that ring for this tour. Problem was, Jake didn't have the ring at that point. The ring was actually being held onto by somebody else who was the money man behind the original Real Superstars of Wrestling tour, who was owed money by Jake. Jake basically hadn't paid him for the ring, so there was a debt that was owed anyway. So this guy was decided to hold on to the ring. Farrar booked this ring for his Blackburn show. And it was booked through Linsky, and Linsky was supposed to be the one bringing it up. But there was an issue really, because the thinking was, if this ring goes up to Blackburn on a show where Jake's there, is Jake going to try and come with a van, load it in, and try and take possession of this ring that he says is his? So it's all just carny bullshit about unpaid debts and just trying to do one over on each other. And so they're not. Lindsay's wondering. But of course, they tell John Farrar, yes, it's booked. But of course, Lindsay's then thinking, well, do I go? Do I not go? Where this gets interesting is apparently the night before, when he's still not decided whether he's actually going to set off from Brighton and carry this. The ring's based on the South Coast, by the way. I think it was based in Worthing.
Why would you book a ring from the South Coast for a show in Blackburn?
Because it's the only 20 by 20 high-spec ring in the UK.
Christ.
Well, listen, he was 5 minutes away. He was 5 minutes away, Linsky.
So
he kept telling people, apparently.
Yeah. So the night before, apparently, Linsky he's phoning around people for advice. He may have phoned some of the people who may have had their own reasons for the show not to happen. And on that advice, I think he decided not to go. But while not setting off, he kept feeding in as if he had set off and he was on the way. Oh, I've broken down. I'm on the motorway. I'm half an hour away. So Farrar was thinking. So not only was he just not letting Jake get this ring, he was absolutely screwing over Farrar and this show as well, and everybody that paid for a ticket.
The Blackburn Screwjob. They absolutely did him in. He clearly. I've listened to the fucking podcast he did with Quilden and Simmons, where he defends himself, and it's like, no, you are a guilty fuck. Like, let's just be real here. Like, I'll keep saying allegedly, mate, but you are a guilty fuck. You were told not to go. You listened to those people.
This exploded on the UKFF the next day with Scott Conway, remember the referee from the Uprising / TWA promoter, posting Linsky's legit mobile number on the UKFF so people could bring him up and give him shit.
Brilliant.
And then, according to Linsky, booked him to do Weymouth the next week anyway, to referee. British wrestling in 2003 was fucking stupid, lads.
Oh, the UKFF was gold with this, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Nobody wanted anywhere else having their piece of this niche audience.
No, there was it was a John Lister analogy, is why share a cake when you can fight over the crumbs.
Yeah.
But even because obviously this was 2003. I remember going back into that thread in 2013, and there were still, I'm pretty sure they still brought it back again, and there was arguments between Farrar and other people and stuff like that.
I don't think we'll ever know the full story of who. Why he did it, who he talked to, who he didn't talk to.
I mean, it ruined Farrar. He left the country for a while. It was a huge mess, and then it got rolled into FWA storylines as well.
Yeah, because the thing was, FWA then wanted to try and look like the good guys saving the day.
Yes, hence booking John Farrar.
They offered free tickets to people who had tickets to the Blackburn show. You could get into New Frontiers for free. As if you're just going to turn up. I had my ticket anyway, but I'm still owed 50 quid from that debacle, by the way. Plus,
Rado, I think Rado as well got a bus and organised it all the way down to Blackburn as well.
Yeah,
so
there was a similar bus from London as well, which was full of people like Andy Quilden, Chris Roberts was on that bus as well. A lad who used to be, I can't remember his real name, that used to be Jody Fleisch fan club. Ben Wright, who's a lad from Norwich. Lad from Norwich, he'd gone from Norwich to London to pick up the bus to then go to Blackburn for a show.
Oh my god!
Oh no,
So-
That's crazy.
At least they got to see like a 5-minute stand-up routine, probably from Dan Perry. But you know, like, but I think like because as we say, they do the makeup piece for John Farrar, the makeup piece. Sorry, you know, they also do the fucking dumbest thing and decide, right, we're going to turn Linsky heel. With this, right?
Yeah,
Well-
Linsky. Well, they decided. First of all, they decided that for New Frontiers, Linsky was for his actions. Linsky was suspended from FWA.
Yes.
So they did they told everybody Linsky was suspended. He took the show off, and you're right. When he came back, he became their go-to guy that could put a lot of the bullshit finishes and decisions on when they needed to get that. So the heat went on the heel referee rather than on the promotion for booking it.
Yes. So, if we are concluded, let's get back to New Frontiers.
Anyway,
Well,
you fucking did it,
it's not-
Linsky. You fucking did it. Sorry, let's move on.
But I mean, Farrar, wheeling out Farrar on the show was he almost was trying to be the character like I am the most controversial man in British wrestling. After he just
They made him look like an idiot.
Yeah,
He never came back, right?
No, he never comes back.
He stumbled over his words in this promo. He was all over the entire angle got kind of like because Greg and John Farrar brought out as the co-managers of the UK Pitbulls who attacked the new tag team champions, the show swearers, and then that was that.
They
And we
clearly
never saw
tried to stop him from doing a Tommy Dreamer to Alex Shane, so I got to bring him in rather than fucking Tommy Dreamer Paul Heyman scenario with us.
Yeah.
What time?
So we also get new red, white, and blue ropes. These are gone by August. I was surprised Ben mentioned him. There was an audio tease, I don't know if Ben remembers, for the arrival of Ian the Machine Freeman.
But you'd have blinked and missed it because there wasn't a video.
Yep.
There was no videos or anything.
It was just a noise and a voice announcing Ian the Machine Freeman, and that was it.
So he was obviously interested in doing something in wrestling at that time, but
it never came of anything. So he is this tease and this purported program was the reason Flash Barker transitions out of the Mr. Blonde style gear into the MMA style gear, like the shorts and the gloves and kick pads, as they were going to have a program that never happened. The Funky Chunky Masked Wrestler that Ben mentioned earlier, JX, wins a 4-way to become the number 1 contender to the All England title. Alex Shane and North Herman beat Mark Sloan and Flash Barker, effectively putting the final nail in the coffin of the old school. And your main event, Doug Williams defeats Jerry Lynn in either a 20 or 30-minute Iron Man match, I can't remember, and this match has never appeared, with a crap finish to become the undisputed number 1 contender to the FWA title.
It was actually about a 31.5-minute Iron Man match because the
yes, they fucked up the final 4.
Yeah.
March the 16th, Broxbourne Civic Hall, Crunch 2003. Lauded as possibly the best top-to-bottom show the FWA ever put on. No footage of Crunch 2003 is available. It is the lost media holy grail for FWA fans. In fact, the only footage that is publicly available, I think, is the stuff I used in recaps and music videos on the TWC series. On this show, JX defeats the Zebra Kid for the All England title, but takes his mask off in celebration to reveal Jack Xavier 9 days before his suspension would have been lifted. He is stripped and the title is returned to the Zebra Kid.
What a plonker.
Dick.
Yeah.
What a dick.
Ben, were you ever clued in on what the actual end game was going to be for the JX angle?
No, I thought that would have been it.
Alex loves mirror-type angles. 2 wrestlers who are very similar, right? The mask was going to come off and it was going to reveal that it was not Jack Xavier. Word was he had found someone the same size and shape as Xavier and could work like him too. Former Untouchables partner of Dave Mastiff, Jack Storm, was supposed to be under the mask in the end, and I never found out why it never happened. Burchell's run-in sees him wreck Linsky, who had been quote-unquote forgiven by the FWA for his part in the missing ring fiasco, and that Alex totally knew nothing about. This was his on-screen punishment. Alex and Orf are billed as defending their tag title against the Pitbulls. The guest ring announcer is Nikita. She announces the Pitbulls, and out comes their manager, Greg Lambert, and he announces that the Pitbulls aren't here. They were merely a tool to get Alex's attention. In reality, Alex couldn't work out what to do with them after this match anyway and didn't want to use them anymore. Lambert then introduces his real charges, the family. Ash has joined. Curve has been sent packing and won't be seen in the company again for almost 4 years, so we don't see him again in our timeline. Bye-bye massive back tattoo.
That happens on this show. That was earlier in this show. So
yes,
the New Breed had an open challenge. It was answered by Brandon Thomas on his own. And then when he's in the ring, his partner is revealed as Ash, who joined the family on that night, and then they both beat down Curve. The family stuff on this show was really strong, to be honest. This show it is fondly remembered as Kieran mentioned, being one of the best. It's not just for the matches; it's for the actual creative angles and storyline progression and things as well. It probably never got better than this, but the family went from this kind of this weird little group to with the addition of Greg Lambert and a few more bolstering to the real.
They were a bunch of losers who very quickly became like a proper force.
Yeah,
it feels like kind of what AEW tried to do with the Dark Order.
Yes, except it worked here.
Yeah, that's what I was just to say. It seems to, obviously, from what you guys are telling me, it seems to work perfectly because they've just found something that works.
But then again, Greg Lambert looks like he's turning up at your door, ready to sell you some insurance with his.
he doesn't quite fit the cult mold.
He doesn't, does he?
But doesn't that just tell you anybody could join a cult? Your next door neighbour, your insurance salesman, might be part of a cult with some long-haired wrestlers. And some bald wrestlers, because you either had lots of hair or no hair in the family.
Yeah.
Greg Lambert, funeral director. This is one the vibe he came across.
So, in this segment, they threaten to give Nikita the sacrifice chair shot after Lambert sensationally reveals that she and Shane are in a relationship. Everybody knew, pretty much. Like, if you're online, you knew. But, this was the first time it was made public and part of an FWA storyline. They hold her hostage in return for an immediate no DQ title shot. And Alex comes out and he caves and Nikita is let go. Lambert then says, the truth lied. And Brandon Thomas belts her in the face with the chair anyway. The family, specifically Paul Travell and Scott Parker, then defeat Shane and Herman for the tag titles, kicking off a hardcore style feud that will run for the rest of the year.
Okay.
In the main event, Johnny Storm defeats Jerry Lynn to become the inaugural XPW European Champion. And after the match, he shocks everyone by slapping Jody Fleisch when he offers a congratulatory handshake and turns heel. Away from this show, using the story that Christopher Daniels is refusing to return to the UK to defend the title against Doug Williams, the match instead is held on the 22nd in Philadelphia at Ring of Honor's Night of Champions. Doug wins, possibly their best singles match. I love this match. And becomes FWA champion, number one contender to the Ring of Honor title, and following their Ring of Honor storyline, is now allowed to shake hands again in ROH. Christopher Daniels explains all that, basically tells you all of this is going to happen in his pre-match promo. You should be glad that I cut off Xavier speaking because he was rubbish. Christopher Daniels carried that promo.
He sells it all incredibly well, and then this match is great. Doug gets Daniels all flustered in a good wee bit of this, and he's on absolute form. I love this.
The commentators are almost as bad as Giles in London. The play-by-play guy sucks. It's like he doesn't know what punctuation is, and he has all the charisma of a tax form. He sounds exactly like Rick Moranis in the party scene in Ghostbusters. You know, when he's going around the room, working the room. Hey, here's so-and-so, he works in here. And that's exact. I later found out it's Gabe Sapolsky using an alias.
Oh, of course.
Right. He had a couple, didn't he? He had a couple of aliases, I do remember.
Yeah, this one was Chris Lovey, I think, was the name.
Chris Lovey, yeah.
And Jimmy Bauer was... He got turned into Jimmy Bauer, didn't he?
Yeah.
It's like Jimmy Barnett with the whole fucking progressing. Yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing that sticks out to me when you first see this match is just how crap Ring of Honor actually looked. I mean,
right?
Yeah.
Andy, do you like the basketball hoops?
Yeah. Well, this was my introduction to Ring of Honor, when I used to get the DVDs from that shop in Manchester. It's just it might be all this good, but it looks like a bag of shit, doesn't it?
We are going to see some crap FWA venues coming up over the course of this show. However, at this time, how much better do the FWA shows look than the Ring of Honor shows?
A lot.
It's because Ring of Honor put all their money into the talent. That's what they were doing. They were getting the best wrestlers. That was the point of that.
Plus, you could hardly hear the music as well.
It wasn't a
very PWG style, isn't it?
Yeah, it took a long time before it became a production values promotion.
Yeah.
I liked this match for the FWA heavyweight title. A great company out of England. I have a feeling we'll be doing something with them in the near future. And then 15 seconds later, a lower third appears with the Frontiers of Honor date on it.
It's like, we're trying to almost tease something, and then it's like, shit.
Yeah,
it's there.
yeah,
okay,
yeah. No, the editor just fucks them over.
To say this is
this
a title match as well. I don't think this match ever actually ended up on an FWA release.
No, it didn't. No, the only way you could see this was on a Ring of Honor. Was on a Ring of Honor VHS. The match itself, there's nothing I really want to single out. Like, it's just 20 minutes of beautiful work. We've talked before about the chemistry these two have. This is like just watching master craftsmen at work.
It's not their best work for me. It's
really.
It's a 3 1/4 star match. There's been better matches between these two.
Wow, this is my favourite of their matches.
I think in a way, Kieran, I think it passed me by, this match.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Even though I like Ring of Honor and that day and age, just like, yeah, it's all right. I thought Doug were the best out of the two of them.
Do you think their TV match that you saw a few months ago was better than this?
Yeah.
The Crunch one?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm looking at this card, and there is a match with another FWA guy in it that
yes.
Oh, I'm looking at it, I'm like...
So I was going to do this at the end, but we'll quickly detour. Later on this show, it has Jody Fleisch versus Low-Key, where a botch accidentally invents a shooting star pile driver. It's a proper mess. I don't know what Jody was doing, but Low-Key ends up upside down, bangs his head on the mat, and then rolls out to the floor. And there's also an awesome Briscoes versus Red and AJ match. So Red and AJ had won the Ring of Honor tag titles a week before. And they defend them against the Briscoes, and it has the crazy finish of Styles throwing Red into a top rope Rana onto Jay, who then gets flipped into AJ's waiting arms straight into the Styles Clash. And also, important for Ring of Honor history, in the main event, Samoa Joe beats Xavier for the Ring of Honor title, kicking off his legendary 2-year reign.
Yeah, don't always say Xavier. He was a charisma vacuum.
Yeah, he's. I've never understood why he got the title at this point.
He did. Bloody hell, he did WWE. I think he turned up as like a job guy on a couple of episodes at this time.
That would happen a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Was this the first show that FW and ROH were doing their partnership from then on in?
I like specifically, yes, but Doug Williams had been on Ring of Honor shows before because he had this story with Christopher Daniels going on. Jody Fleisch was part of Special K.
Yes. Correct.
So yeah, like they'd been over before, but like this was like overt. This was an FWA match on a Ring of Honor show.
I was just wondering if this was kind of the first time that LSR and kind of whoever was working in whoever's kind of owning FW was then talking to Gabe and whoever and going, hey, by the way, we can...
Yeah.
It was a weird partnership as well when you consider who else the FWA was partnered with, the other US group that the FWA was supposedly partnering at the same time. Because XWA and ROH were big rivals.
But also, not only that, Johnny Storm and Jody Fleisch also did occasional TNA dates around this time as well. So like it's interesting that they managed to get a finger in each of the 3 kind of upstart independent promotions in the US at the same time. I've got to say, quite smart. I am going to single out one sequence from this match near the end. Williams escapes the Koji clutch by turning into it and grabbing a cravat, pulling Daniels up by the head, slamming some knees into him, and then flinging him around in a spinning Cobra clutch. Finish comes after. Doug backdrops out of the Angel's wings, grabs a waistlock while ducking a clothesline, runs Daniels into the buckles for the Chaos Theory. I love the touch at the end of it because he can now shake hands again in Ring of Honor.
He does the...
Yeah. Daniels is selling on the mat and Doug just comes up and grabs his hand and shakes it.
The Code of Honor stuff was bollocks, really, wasn't it? It was just a load of just taking itself too seriously.
But like the FWA and the cards, it was a way of making them different and making them stand out.
I do like the idea of the handshake to start a match, though. That's something you can actually do a lot with that, can't you? You can actually set the tone for the match, establish characters. Like the 5 pillars of honor or whatever it was called was a bit stupid, but like, the handshake thing is fine. Very easy to get the piss out of.
Yeah. I am going to disagree with Andy's assessment of the match, though. Like, if you want to sign the quality, early Ring of Honor was all high quality independent wrestling in front of some of the most jaded hardcore fans imaginable. They'd seen everything. These two went on fourth and got a standing ovation. So they must have done something right.
Just great chemistry between these two. Every time they wrestle, I think they need to know what they're doing. They need to know when to speed up, when to slow down.
Natural opponents.
Yeah, never see anything really go wrong.
So Ben has already referenced like Greg Lambert's book. There's a quote from Doug in that where he says like he loved wrestling Christopher Daniels. Like Daniels was really creative, would come up with 100 ideas for their match, and like 95 of them would go right in the match. April, the FWA embarks on its first ever proper tour, and in fact, the biggest tour they would ever undertake. British Breakout. It ran from the 19th to the 28th, and this travelling circus would stop in Where? Thank you. Hertfordshire, Cleethorpes, Morecambe, Acton, Bolton, Sudbury, the main brand's last ever show in Portsmouth, if you think of where this all started, and Newport in Wales. In that order. So go on Google Maps and plot that out.
Someone didn't know their geography, did they? Because it was you would never plan to go where Cleethorpes, Morecambe, back down to Acton, back up to Bolton, back down to Sudbury.
Yeah. The Acton show was only added 13 days before it happened. Sanjay Bagga was the promoter, and I believe it did like 125 people. I was at that one. It wasn't good.
Did a roaring trading meal deals as well, that local
meal deals, you only get a sandwich out of Bagger. Joining the regular crew are Ulf Herman, Juventud Guerrera, who had also been over for New Frontiers and Crunch, and Chris Hamrick, who was a replacement for and massive upgrade over the original announced Chris Chetty. They loved having an ex-ECW guy on all of their shows. Loads of people moaned that Hamrick wasn't worth the money or they didn't know who he was, but I would say he earned his pay on this tour. He was excellent. He won people over, and he'd be back before the end of the year.
Yeah, he was a regular for ECW, but it was never a massive push.
No, not at all. But no, he was an undercard guy. He was barely above, like Simon Diamond's entourage, wasn't he? But he was a name that people knew.
Yeah, he earned his money on this tour. He did exactly the same in 1PW a few years later as well. He got over in the same way with the same type of audience again. He just knows how to work.
He knew how to work every type of audience. I worked Acton, Sudbury, Portsmouth and Newport on this tour. The whole thing was a poorly organised mess. And Steve Linsky faked a knee injury in Morecambe so he could go home. Night 3, the 21st, Hamrick beats Zebra Kid for the All England title. Johnny Storm wins it off him in Sudbury on the 26th, and Zebra gets it back the next night in Portsmouth. Also in Portsmouth, Shane and Herman would beat Travell and Parker for the tag titles. Funny story about this match. The local promoter had advertised it as Falls Count Anywhere, and Alex was pissed off. He was like, they're hardcore matches, not Falls Count Anywhere. And I went, Alex, in WWE, hardcore matches are Falls Count Anywhere. So that's probably what he means. You're going to fight all over the fucking building anyway. Just get a 2 count on Travell over by the merch stand and you're covered. Guess what happened? He got a 2 count on Travell over by the merch stand and magically it was a Falls Count Anywhere match. On the last night in Newport, the family win the tag belts back, and as kind of a final night treat for everyone, they put the two imports against each other. So we had Guerrera over Hamrick in a fun match. I mostly remember for Hamrick farting as Hoovy put a submission hold on him, and Guerrera having to legitimately abandon the hold because of the smell. So they did put partial cards up on the website for the whole tour before it started, but they replacing Chetty messed things up. The other thing that messed things up, second night, Duke of Danger breaks his arm in a match with Hayes Manson. So he has to be written out of the tour, and all of this gets thrown into disarray, and a lot of this ends up getting booked in the minibus or once they get to the building. Side note, also around this time, Scotty Rock disappears, never to be seen again. I chucked Doug versus Hamrick from Cleethorpes on the playlist. Any thoughts? I see a lot of head shaking. This didn't go down well.
All I've got to say, Kieran, and I mentioned this.
Go on.
Sorry. It was you're on about that then now forever. Yeah. You like WWE.
You can do it. I believe in you. So, people who haven't seen Chris Hamrick, he has blonde, shoulder-length hair, bit balding at the front, not unlike a British television personality of the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. And the crowd decided to chant this name of this person at him. This person was massively disgraced just after his death in 2012 when it came out. He had done a lot of awful things. And so this hit's kind of different today than it did at the time.
You were like John Atkins on commentary was saying respected household name.
Yes. So the crowd are all chanting Jimmy Savile at Hamrick, and John Atkins describes him as a respected household name. Bear in mind the commentary was recorded in 2004 in my living room.
Oh my God.
Things that have aged so entirely well there, clearly.
Yep. Other things that have been aged brilliantly. This 14-foot ring that makes Hamrick look like Andre the fucking Giant. This ring was so small.
I put down that Chris Hamrick looks like one of the nihilists in Big Lebowski, just face-wise. And then, like, you know, you can see, like, the Confederate flag on the back of him. And you're
his gear, it's bright red, pleather top, pleather trousers with Confederate flags on. He is unmistakably a wrestler of 2003.
Is there censorship in this match?
That's what Eddie is. Took the words out of my mouth.
Yeah, there is censorship. I think that's best to cover once we get onto the TWC TV season.
Okay.
Because I censored this match.
Right, okay.
For reasons we will go into later on, because we're going to have a lot of it to deal with on TWC.
Bloody hell, you could have got repetitive strain injury by the end of this, where Hamrick was...
Yeah, thank God Ulf Herman wasn't on the TWC season.
Wow.
This referee has Premier League standards above him with the amount of things like, oh, clamp to that, oh, what, all right, okay.
Yeah, so Hamrick is a master southern heel clown. Like, one of his favourite spots is getting backed up into the corner, and when the ref goes in between to break him up, he'll clap and then clutch his eye and claim he got punched in the eye.
Yeah.
There is a match with Johnny Storm on Hot Wired, I think.
Yes, yeah.
It is hilarious. It is like, it's 15 minutes of them fucking about doing this kind of stuff, and then 10 minutes of them doing modern indie, and then a DQ finish because Jesus Christ. But yeah, Hamrick did this act every night. Everything you see here, he did every night.
It's essentially it's an all-star panto baddie routine, but it just works.
Yes.
It's because it's based on just simple human tricks that everyone can understand. Everyone reacts to it. It just works.
Well, he did one where he slid balls first into the post, weren't it?
Yep.
Well, he gets the atomic drop, and then he goes outside on the mic, and he's all like high pitch. You get my balls.
Yep. He did all of that, but when he's done all that, he then does the Hamrick bump. Mm-hmm. Like the feet first over the middle rope out to the floor, which always looks devastating. And he's been doing like since the 90s. And then like he could also wrestle. Like he's a guy who could do moonsaults and stuff like that. So he fit the modern indie mold as well. Like he's completely unique.
Wait, with the moonsault he fucked up, weren't it? Well, that was sort of like a false.
So he also did that every night of this tour.
Wow.
Yep. The first night, everybody bought it.
Yeah.
And people went on the internet to talk about it. And Chris Hamrick wasn't on the internet between those 2 days. So he did it again the next night. And by the time you got to the end of the tour, everybody knows it's going to happen because they've all been on the UKFF reading everybody's write-ups from the previous dates. But he does it really well. So Williams takes a comedic and athletic first fall with the Revolution DDT. Hamrick takes a second with a super kick after faking a knee injury, quote-unquote, slipping on a moonsault attempt. So all the baby faces come out and they look over him like it's going to be done, and then Doug takes a step towards him and he pushes the ref out of the way, like kicks him, gets the pin. I did like how disgusted John Atkins was on commentary. Like, this is the most heinous thing he's ever seen in professional wrestling.
It's worth mentioning, people were there and saw this, that people, when we go to like Cleethorpes and Grimsby kind of area for wrestling today, people still talk about this angle.
Really?
Yeah, people still.
Wow.
Most convincing kind of fake injury angle they've ever seen. That's
amazing. And I don't think this is the best he did it on that tour. The third fall is the daft, dusty finish. Stevens gets clattered. Doug gets a visual pin with a Chaos Theory and then goes to check the ref. Hamrick hoofs him in the dick, hits the illegal pile driver. Linsky hits the ring, makes the 3 count like he's trying to beat out a small fire on the mat, and Hamrick wins. Stevens comes back in while he's arguing with Linsky. Williams hits the Chaos Theory with Stevens counting for the actual pin. I just threw this on as like a sample of like what was on the tour. And so you could see like the kind of it, like, no disrespect, that Cleethorpes venue is fucking horrible.
I think Ben said to me the other day, isn't it like a block of flats or something now?
It's a block of flats now. It got demolished a long time ago. But yeah, the Cleethorpes venue looks like someone's front room, doesn't it? It's got like very dated kind of striped wallpaper. It's got like these weird like fake Roman columns as well. It's very strange.
I enjoy like on the hard cam you can see all these people in like this one area right staring in front, and they're all like chanting and making noise and stuff like that.
There's someone very, very annoying, very, very close to a microphone somewhere, and you can just hear them just chanting banal rubbish the entire.
I did write. There seem to be a lot of pricks in this crowd.
It must be absolute hell to have to sit next to some loud chanting, singing fans at shows, eh?
What could that possibly be like? Idiots with air horns, that kind of thing. Quick aside, I wanted to ask Ben, do you remember Shiny Pants?
I do. Shiny Pants was a fanzine that regular fans of the FWA used to write for themselves and sell at shows.
Yes.
And it had regular skits and things in like, there was like a skit that was supposed to be like the family all living together in a house, going about their kind of like their daily business.
Mrs. Lambert's diary, wasn't it? It was Greg's long-suffering wife as a character looking after the family as they all lived in a house together, like patching up their wounds from all these violent matches and that kind of thing. It was put together by John Herbert, Johnny Boy on the UKFF, not the F1 driver. He was a lovely bloke, and he named it because everybody... It started coming out around this time, didn't it? I think. And he named it because everybody seemed to be wearing shiny pleather shorts or trousers.
Actually, you say on the front, shiny pants, but the subhead thing was, "Don't worry, they've got wrestlers in them."
I used to have a couple. I don't think I've got them anymore. I think Alex got it shut down because it was fan money not going to the FWA, and because he's thin-skinned with very little sense of humour about himself and didn't like being parodied.
Yeah, it's not very long after this that they actually start. I think it was possibly even Vendetta that summer they started doing their own FWA fanzine, which I wrote for a while.
Oh, so 3 people have read that. Not a reflection on your writing at all, but like I think it didn't have it wasn't fun like Shiny Pants was.
No.
Yeah,
my bit certainly weren't.
May 2003, May the 17th, Frontiers of Honor, a show that lots of people have asked, are we going to be covering in full? The answer is no. We're going to rattle through it here today.
Yeah.
Before the show, I had to take a bunch of the imports out to find food and money for Loki. Like, he only had dollars. And I remember specifically Samoa Joe going, "Come along, old boy, let's go and get you some pounds." These very healthy athletes were very disappointed that all the food around Bethnal Green was greasy spoons and kebab shops. I remember Christopher Daniels struggling to order water because the waitress couldn't understand his accent, and them all being annoyed that their chicken was going to be fried rather than grilled. This was also the day that photographer Amy Hannafan struck up a years-long friendship with Samoa Joe after discovering, taking time difference into account, they were born just minutes apart. We also had to find a TV so most of the UK roster and Joe could watch the FA Cup final. Who knows what the FA Cup final was in 2003?
Southampton versus Arsenal.
And who won?
Arsenal.
Arsenal won 2-1, I think.
Arsenal won 1-0. Thierry Henry was the goal scorer. Joe and Loki also had a little jiu-jitsu roll around in the ring before the doors opened. This is the show we've mentioned before, where dumb fuck tape trader Mark Petar almost got the whole thing shut down. He had been specifically told not to sell his Ring of Honor bootlegs at this show, but did so under the table while ROH management were literally 10 feet from him, and they were seeing... So fans would go to Mark's table, buy the Ring of Honor tapes there because they were PAL and would play on their video players, and then go over to the Ring of Honor desk where they were selling the NTSC ones that wouldn't work,
Yeah.
For most of them. But they wouldn't put their tapes in the bag. They would just like have them out in front of the Ring of Honor guys. So he obviously got caught. They threatened to pull all of their talent, and Alex had to tell him to pack up and go home, and he was barred from selling at FWA shows. This created the additional problem. His sponsorship money was propping up quite a lot of the shows. So Barry Charalambous, who we have mentioned on every show so far, I think, set up in his stead for a few months. But Barry's tapes were fucking terrible. They were awful quality, and sometimes they were just blank because he was lazy and didn't pay attention to what was going on.
Sometimes you buy them and you find it had been recorded in long play on half of a 3-hour tape for some reason.
Yep. When enough people complained, Peter was eventually brought back. The show also started almost half an hour late because the pyro team hadn't rigged their stuff to the lighting rig before it was raised, so they had to come down, get rigged, go back up again. And York Hall's seating plan and the FWA seating plan didn't match, so York Hall sold a load of tickets for seats that didn't exist.
That's happened before at York Hall.
Yes.
I've been victim to that.
They sold tickets to this on Ticketmaster. There's FWA shows available.
Yes.
Tickets available on Ticketmaster.
Bloody hell.
So I went through Ticketmaster, and that's how I ended up getting the gold ticket, but I was second row rather than front row.
And how was York Hall security by this point?
I don't know if any boxing fans have stabbed each other at this point.
These were the days you couldn't take a drink into the actual seats back then.
You had the sheet.
Drink in the bar. Yeah, you couldn't even stand in the bar and watch the show. There was a big curtain in the way.
Yeah, we saw this when we did Uprising.
When we did Uprising, yeah.
Comparison to boxing and just York Hall in general, actually, like when wrestling has always filmed York Hall the exact same way, apart from maybe the first Uprising, but wrestling's always put the hard cam on the far back balcony pointing towards the stage. Every single wrestling promotion that's ever done there has always done that. Boxing always puts a hard cam and production on the stage looking at the crowd and uses the side of the
am going to counter that by saying when we did RQW, we moved the hard cam around 90 degrees to one of the sides. So it was like the Monday Night Raw, everybody enters from the left setup. And they also had the crane in there as well. So you could see all 150 people who'd come.
Wrestling always just seems to be pointing at zero. It's a big, loud venue when it's full. But wrestling always seems to point at very sparsely populated sections where...
Yes, you will notice that very few of those seats, much like Uprising, very few of the seats by the stage have sold. There are big gaps. So the Frontiers of Honor series was 6 interpromotional matches. The winner of each scores a point for their company. And there was a bit of an issue that the Ring of Honor team seemed to be based on year-old tapes. So Steve Corino was originally advertised and was on the poster, but refused because he was a big heel in the company and it didn't make sense for his character to represent Ring of Honor. Mikey Whipwreck had wrestled 1 match in Ring of Honor before this show and would only do another 2 afterwards. And like Corino, Christopher Daniels was doing something of an anti-Ring of Honor gimmick at the time, but he kind of made it make sense with his promotion come his match. So, James Tye beats Paul London. Jack Xavier pins Mikey Whipwreck. AJ Styles beats Johnny Storm in their highly anticipated rematch. Samoa Joe turned what had been billed as non-title into a Ring of Honor world title match en route to beating Zebra Kid in a wildly entertaining match that birthed the Olay kick. Flash Barker went to an uninspiring 20-minute draw with Low Key also separating his shoulder.
Yeah.
And this means it is 2-2. And the winner of Jody Fleisch and Christopher Daniels would take the series for their company. I don't know what order to do this in. Let's quickly get another match out of the way. The family combo of Brandon Thomas, Scott Parker and Paul Travell beat Alex Shane, Nikita and Ulf Herman in a hardcore match that saw Scott Parker get knocked out in his very first spot and then later rescue a Van Terminator when Ash did a run-in, slipped off the top rope, threw a strop and went to the back. And I remember Parker telling me later on, I don't even remember doing that. I'd never done one before and didn't know if I could do that one. Ulf does the Cabbage Patch. Travell did an insane tornado DDT off the entrance set. Alex bruised his tailbone doing the one-night stand off the stage through a table. And Nikita jumped off the balcony, earning the company another bollocking from York Hall management. And then Ian Disciple pretended to be Paul Travell and pin Nikita. I used loads of this match in music videos over the following year. So I put together a little hour-long digest of this show for you rather than making you watch the whole thing.
Thank you.
And we start with what was billed as Burchill's debut match against, they are now known as Hampton Court, Simmons, and the Duke of Danger. But Duke, of course, has a broken arm. So he tells us, despite being a supreme physical specimen, he has failed to win his fight with fitness. And has found a suitable replacement to wrestle in place of himself and Simmons, the team of Ross Jordan and Raj Ghosh, Double Dragon, in their only FWA appearance. I have to ask Andy, as a fan of the flowing boy band locks of one Raja Ghosh, how did you feel when you saw him come out bald?
Well, to take one of Ben's songs, Baldy, Baldy, over there. What's it like? He looked different, didn't he? He looked better with his boy band hairdo.
Yeah. He's gone from being 18 to being 30, hasn't he, by taking his hair off?
Yeah, hard paper round.
So Duke boasts this is now 4-on-1, and it doesn't take a genius. And as he says genius, the old school music hits, and here comes the twisted genius, Dean Ayers, for the first time since Uprising. And he says the old school was just a minor setback, and the secret to being a great manager is to always have a plan B. And in this case, the B stands for Burchill. He then, for the first time, reads the disclaimer. You are entering this ring at your own risk. Mr. Burchill and Mr. Ayers cannot be held responsible for any broken bones. I prefer the accept no responsibility variant. It flows off the tongue better.
It felt very much like Jeff Jones, Mike Awesome.
Bringing out Mike Awesome, yeah.
Or Jeff Jones would just bring out any big fucker, weren't it? Like Sid, weren't it? And,
what you'd find as well was this got over. I mean, it made Burchill sound like the most dangerous man in the world, didn't it? But fans would start reciting it with AS, like word for word.
Yeah, I think it took a while to catch on, but by the time you get to Uprising 3, the whole place is doing it. It was good. They put it on a T-shirt.
Yeah.
And I would say, Kieran, I know I didn't believe you the last episode we did that Burchill was 6 foot odd. When I said he was about 5'7" with lifts, he did look his 6 foot.
Look big, didn't he?
Yeah.
So we get Burchill versus Double Dragon. It's all the same moves as Burchill's run-ins. Northern Light suplex rolled into an air raid crash, hands-free kip-up, Samoan crash, moonsault, standing shooting star press. We also get an insane combination German and belly-to-belly suplex where he throws both of them at the same time. A flip dive over the corner post, I believe, injured Raj's shoulder.
Better than Leon Slater, to be honest.
This is why Raj was very unhappy when Dean grabs his hand and starts waving it at the camera, because that's the shoulder he's just possibly dislocated. There is also a missed moonsault where he legitimately reaches the opposite corner of the ring.
Yeah.
He's crazy. I remember asking him, like, where did you get this spring from? Like, how can you do this? And he's like, I went trampolining since I was 4 years old. And, his leg muscles just built up, and it's how he could do all this incredible stuff. Burchill's finisher at this point is the move with no name. I can name it. It's a pump-handled emerald flosion. Part of the package is that Burchill doesn't pin his opponents. He destroys them, he walks away, and he wins by 10-count knockout. And listen to how much the crowd were into all of this. This is no imports. This is all homegrown guys, and it's all massively over.
It's from the moment Jane Charles says the following contest is a handicap match, and they know which match is coming next. They erupt.
Yes. Perfect.
It's just constant noise.
Yeah.
This is the best. This is awesome. This is everything you want. This is what they should. This is like Ryback Goldberg-esque debut style awesomeness, and he just comes in and he just beats them up. Beats up a video game originally, because I was like, Double Dragon, the video game, right? Okay.
Yep, Bimmy and Jimmy.
Just gonna start punching the video game, but no, this is great. And this sets Burchill up to be an utter star, because obviously we've seen him before. Obviously, when he interrupted the new breed against the World of Sport 2024 tag champions UK Pitbull.
I forgot about that.
Because it's 2024
Yes.
and the UK Pitbulls are champions.
Yes. This is his first official match, like in the FWA. So he's worked academy shows, and soon after this, he works All Star and like just becomes a wrestler elsewhere. But he'd only done run-ins on main shows.
And I think it's great working him with Ace as well. That is again, it's a good spot for him. As soon as I heard the old school theme, I was like, "Oh, what?" And then. Yeah, but it's, again, Ice and Birchall work well. Ice does the talking. Birchall just arrives, kicks up shit, and leaves.
Yep.
And especially doing like the 10 count and stuff like that, it makes like it's like when Big E in NXT used to do the 5 count for NXT. It's something different.
Yep.
Which is what you want.
The next match I put in this little digest, I think actually came directly after this. Johnny Storm versus AJ Styles, the rematch. Johnny has Eddie's new favourite song.
Oh yeah, it's like when I am the one. It's a good theme song. I fucking love it.
Yeah. It's a Chesney Hawkes sample.
He's such a good dick, Johnny Storm in this, and he comes across as like, I think it's been a while because I think they've always been kind of very stale baby faces. There's never really been any kind of like one of the kind of A tier becoming a heel. So I think Johnny being the heel is quite different.
There was definitely like a top line heel deficit in the FWA, like with the old school gone. Like who else is there? So like the time to turn Johnny and elevate him was now, I think. He does a generic heel promo. My next note says, Ben's hat is so big I think it can be seen from every single camera angle at once. It looked like the one that Homer Simpson hides the video camera. Gainesville is spelt wrong on AJ's graphic. We mentioned that Johnny's the heel here, but AJ has always put a little sauce on everything he does, and I think this match is much more aggressive than the first one. They do a great spot where they do side-by-side kip-ups, and it looks like we're in for yet another indie standoff, but AJ, as soon as they hit their feet, he just hauls off and levels Johnny with this massive clothesline. It gets reversed, but the velocity with which AJ grabs Storm for the first attempt at the moonsault DDT is crazy. The thing he invents this time round is a pump handle spinning gutbuster and then a high-speed one-armed spinning neck breaker out of the ropes. What else do we do here? Anything fun? Oh, they go up to the end of the stage. Storm uses the entrance truss to swing into a Rana, but AJ blocks it, and after having a Styles Clash reverse, powerbombs Johnny onto his knee. And I was like, why don't you just powerbomb him on the wood?
One of my notes on about the ramp is it's certainly gotten better over the years at York, or this just looked like a plank of wood.
Oh, yeah. So this they didn't have... It wasn't really a proper ramp. It was a platform that they put at an angle. The two sides of it don't match. So you look at the colours of it, they're off. It's black on one side and sort of grey on the other. It starts coming apart in the middle, and every entrance would fall down the step at the end. Like it doesn't go smoothly into the floor. There's a step, and nobody's paying attention to it as they come down. So loads of people, like, you know,
small dragon it.
Oh yeah, I was going to say Juventud Guerrero on Nitro, but yeah, that's a good one.
But that ramp seems like the leftover MDF they had from the lettering on the stage, innit? So
anything to save a penny.
It's a different match to the first one, isn't it? I mean, it's still, the first one is all about your cool moves and the reversals and things like that, and it's like wowing people. Whereas this is more, it's still got all your cool moves, but it's like slowed down. It's paced differently. It's got that kind of goodie versus baddie kind of dynamic to it. It's more telling the story.
I was very surprised that Johnny got to kick out of a Styles Clash. Styles in return kicks out of what will become known as the Wonder Whirl, which is kind of like a Made in Japan, but before Made in Japan was invented. So Storm foils a middle rope Styles Clash, which, remember, he got hit with in the first match, but the referee was down. Hits a double jump Rana off the top, can't follow up in the opposite corner. AJ crushes him with a discus lariat and then hits a springboard 450 for what is quite obviously not supposed to be the finish. I don't think you can ever call it a bad match. It's not as good as the first one, though, is it? That botched finish really knocks the shine off this.
Well, you notice with the finish, it's Johnny sort of saves face because it looks like he's got his foot on the rope.
He was too close to the ropes.
Yeah.
Linsky clearly does not count to 3, but then claims he does.
Yeah.
AJ was obviously supposed to win, but I wonder, like, what was supposed to happen after this?
Well, I think he used this. Didn't AJ use this finisher quite a few times in maybe like TNA?
I don't know.
He does. He uses that move in WWE to this day.
Yeah.
Wow. How was he? Fight 47 doing a springboard 450?
And he's got more hair as well now.
And more muscle. Like, he's 3 times the size of this AJ Styles.
Yeah.
It's a shame, isn't it? Because it's the thing you remember about this match. It's the one with the fucked up finish at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of the work they do before that is really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if Johnny just didn't, because Johnny doesn't kick out. So I just wonder if he didn't hear the count or he didn't hear Linsky go down or what.
Yeah. Don't know. So Johnny attacks AJ after the bell. When he goes for a chair, though, Jody sprints out from the back and drop kicks him out of the ring. Fast forward to the main event, Jody Fleisch versus Christopher Daniels. Winner takes the tournament for their company. Despite the rest of the tournament matches having a 20-minute time limit, this one magically doesn't, with no announcement. Heel in FWA, heel in Ring of Honor. Daniels gets a massive pop on his entrance. He manages to turn it around, though. He takes the mic from, quote, Trollop Jane Childs, runs down the crowd and basically says when he wins this match and tournament, he doesn't win it for Ring of Honor, he wins it for the Prophecy, which is his group in Ring of Honor.
But of course, when he does take the microphone and call a lady a trollop, everyone cheers him because it's 2003.
Yes,
and it's wrestling fan.
A second parallel match breaks out almost immediately. Christopher Daniels versus the crowd. Because despite the initial reaction, York Hall play their part and they get on his case and he responds brilliantly every time.
You suck dick. I think was one, weren't it? When we were doing the...
Yeah. So they do... The opening spot isn't a lock-up. Like, Jody offers a handshake. Daniels slaps him, so Jody backhands him. Crowd immediately start chanting, "You got bitch slapped" at him. And he plays off this brilliantly. I noticed, as I had and forgot to mention at Seasons Beatings, there's a man smoking in the crowd at this show. What?
Yeah, smoking ban didn't come in until 2005, was it? You could smoke in
I don't know, but it's like it seems so weird now.
So smoking ban, smoking in closed public places and workplaces has been illegal in England, Wales and Northern Ireland since 2007. They trialled it out a year before in Scotland, where it was banned in 2006.
I was going to say where it didn't take up, and you can still smoke wherever you like.
Yeah.
That would explain this season's beating, just the massive smoke in the final.
Yeah. So it wasn't the pyro at all. It was the crowd sparking up. This one also goes up to the stage after Jody does a massive moonsault off the middle of the top rope halfway up the aisle. They get covered in glitter as they fight up the ramp. Jody has a suplex and then takes a running leap off a chair held by the pyrotechnician into a Hurricane Rana that sends Daniels all the way back down the ramp. It's basically Daniels in control with Fleisch getting occasional hope spots, and everything Daniels does in this match is so crisp. His execution is on point. Jody's high-flying comeback begins when Daniels is distracted, telling the fans that he does not, in fact, suck dick. Jody's standing shooting star press would probably mean more if Burchill hadn't done one during his match, and if James Ty hadn't won the fucking opener with one. The springboard one, though, he does, though, of course, looks amazing. As he goes for the 720, Johnny Storm appears and kind of throws a chair at him, knocking him off the top rope into the waiting Angel's wings, and Daniels wins the match and the tournament. They batter Jody until, quote, acting commissioner Dino Scarlo appears on the stage and sicks the baby faces of both companies onto them, and they scarper up to the stage and take him hostage.
There's a great bit where, as you see them scarpering towards the thing, the some of the faces are still slowly.
Yeah, but it's Paul London in particular. Like, he's stuck right at the back of this queue and is running past them into the ring as they're already going up the ramp. So they take Dino hostage. Storm grabs Dino's mic and makes it clear that his jealousy over Fleisch is why he cost the FWA that night, and then cracks Dino over the head with the chair and legs it. Dino blades because he can't help himself, and we go off the air. This is another great match with a kind of botchy finish. Like, they couldn't figure out what they were doing with that chair. It's such a shame.
Match was probably a bit long for me as well. Like, kind of, if you think about what made those seasons beatings matches so good, was it that snappiness that nothing kind of...
Oh, like the longest one is like 15 minutes, I think, at seasons beatings. Yeah, this is over 20. And the inside scoop, I know LSR cut a big chunk out of it as well when he was doing the edit.
The thing as well, this show was running actually on the night, this show was running very late.
Oh, this show didn't finish till like 11:15. It was supposed to be done like 10:30, and it finished like 11:15, 11:20. Like, people were having to leave before the main event was done.
A lot of people that had gone, because I mean, there was no night tube and things at that time.
No, York Hall going long is not a Rev Pro invention.
Yeah. I had to remember, I was staying over near Paddington somewhere, and I had to get 3 different night buses through London.
Jesus.
And got back about 2 a.m.
Wow.
Let me tell you, it's a lot easier now in 2024.
Just jump on the Central line now, even any time of night.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. Any pertinent thoughts about Jody Fleisch versus Christopher Daniels?
It wasn't as good as I thought it'd be, to be honest. Well, obviously the Johnny and AJ, I thought that's probably the best match of the lot. It had a bum finish, and that match, yeah, it was just there. I mean, it built Johnny Storm as like the main heel in the story, but yeah, for two, probably the best on the card. Yeah, not up to much, mate.
It's a decent match. It's not as I probably would say, for in terms of like the overall kind of repeated match quality that they gave, I think Chris Daniels is probably the best import that FWA ever used.
Him and AJ possibly.
Yeah.
So the next day there was a fan fest in some metal bar. The only bit I remember was some kind of video game tournament.
Electro Works in Angel, just around the corner from where me and Andy stayed for All In.
Oh,
it's still there.
Still there?
Still there. Yeah.
Wow.
Look, he was very, very miserable at the fan slam, I seem to remember.
Yes, he was. He was also very miserable at the Job Squad pub night they did. And a very drunk, now cancelled, problematic fan sat down next to an already seething Loki and clapped him on the dislocated shoulder. And to this day, I am shocked I did not witness a murder.
With your hand off of my shoulder.
I think he just went, "Careful, brother," and that was it. But this guy was completely and he's 3 times the size of Loki, completely oblivious to what he'd done.
And it was a weird thing as well to have your afternoon fan slam and your evening kind of like essentially your after party at the pub the day after the show when everyone's gone home.
It is weird. The bit I remember, apart from the low key thing at the pub night, was afterwards Mikey Whipwreck trying to make love to a postbox. He'd never seen like a British red postbox before, and he was a bit drunk and decided he was going to try and have sex with it.
When the opening's right at the top, unless he were like kissing it.
It's got a keyhole. Right. June has Vendetta on the 22nd. Again, I put together another little digest of this one.
Just final thought on Ring of Honor.
We probably should cover that a bit more. Like, it is one of the big, like, best remembered shows of the FWA, isn't it?
I mean, overall, I think it's still a very good event from top to bottom. So you got, I mean, pretty much all, with the exception of one of them, I think just about all the kind of interpromotional matches can deliver what you want.
All London's matches are good.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They've been really good.
But I quite like the non-interpromotional stuff as well. So you've got like the hardcore trios match and the virtual debut. They kind of like they're massive, the main ongoing FWA storyline. So I managed to get those on the big show of the year as well. And it's quite clever that actually things like the Johnny kind of turn and feud with Jody is the main talking point coming out of the interpromotional thing. They managed to weave their own kind of storylines for the rest of the year into this almost like a showcase exhibition event. So I think that they did quite good for that.
Yeah, it was set up as a bunch of dream matches, but it is a storyline show.
It built the rest of the year, didn't it?
Yeah. So, Vendetta on the 22nd of June. Before the opener, Jane Childs announces that Broxbourne Council presented the FWA with a commemorative decanter in respect of their run of shows at the building, and it sits on the timekeeper's table for the night. In the opener, I just sent you the finish of this. Nikita turns Raj Ghosh's pump handle move into a reverse victory roll and pins him. And after she leaves, here come the family, led by Greg Lambert. Lambert tells Raj, quote-unquote, the truth, that his career has stalled since Uprising. He didn't win there. He lost to Simmons at Crunch. He was in a tag team getting squashed by Burchill at Frontiers of Honor. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, and a bloke in the crowd lightning fast yells, "You turn up!"
Brilliant.
Perfect timing. Lambert's actual point, though, is that Raj Ghosh has just lost to a girl. He doesn't blame Raj, though. He blames Alex Shane, the fans, and FWA management for holding him back and makes a case for him to join the family. Raj turns him down, going, "I'm only 18. He says he's early in his career and he'll overcome all these setbacks. Another wag in the crowd then very loudly shouts, "Tell him to fuck off!" which also cracked me up.
I like the bit. Greg opens his promo and he goes, "I've been watching you, Raj," and everyone just does a big camp. Ooh. Yeah. Raj
tells Greg he can shove his offer, so Greg sets the family on him, and they set him up for the sacrifice and then scatter when Shane and Herman hit the ring. Never fear, because the show swearers are here. Now, I believe that is a name that the aforementioned John Herbert came up with on the forums. It got sort of semi-officially adopted for them and then just dropped. Very odd. Good name, though. I like it. Alex says he and North are going to batter the family in the First Blood match tonight, and there's two things you can do about it. And then he hands the mic over to Ulf, who goes, "Piss blood from your head and shit your pants." Brilliant segment. Perfect. I sent you a menacing Dean Ayers and Birchall promo, which is basically Dean saying he traded the old school, a bunch of veterans at the end of their career, for someone just starting out, someone he can mould and guide. And it's basically him putting the company on notice, like he has the monster.
Is this the one with the half and half pictures?
Yeah,
so it's like the one where he's talking at your face on, and he's got the Monday Night Raw side on view.
Yes.
Yeah. No, I thought that was a nice bit.
Yeah, I didn't edit it, but I'm one of those camera angles. I can't remember which one.
Right.
So Alex Shane and North Herman versus the family in a First Blood match. Not elimination style. The first team with both members bleeding loses. The family, again, are officially Paul Travell and Scott Parker in this match because they're the two that can work. The babyfaces beat up Greg's wife before the match. Don't be alarmed. It's a blow-up sex doll and a T-shirt that a group of fans would bring to shows to wind Lambert up. She took a pile driver at Frontiers of Honor. I've never understood why all of the Shane and Friends versus Family gimmick matches had people standing around waiting for legal tags for the first half.
Yeah.
Anything goes, but you have to make a tag is one of my least favourite stipulations.
It seems like it'd be better if it's like tornado rules rather than
it would.
This kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah, I don't know why they did it like that. I guess it was so like people had a chance to rest or whatever, but
it's a typical Alex Shane match, isn't it? It's like, oh no, it starts okay for the first 2 minutes, and right, no lads, come on.
They all had this formula, but I think Ben would probably agree they were usually pretty entertaining.
And I think they work better live on the night than you do. It's very much for the live audience than
yeah, very much so. However, like watching this one back, I think this is one of the best of them, and it still kind of works on tape quite well.
I think also giving Shane a tag partner in Herman, who is just kind of as entertaining as him, with a little bit of kind of fun, is like it's like often.
It's like two charismatic giants throwing people around, isn't it? Two charismatic giant baby faces throwing people around.
Yeah, it's the FW Mega Powers, Germany and England.
No, hang on. Wasn't that going to be Schamberg and Scott Parker? That's what you decided.
I'm heartbroken that we still, Schamberg's no longer with us.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's essentially it is the same match every time. Whether it's Alex teaming with Nikita or later Stevie Knight, or it's the same. And I know Alex had a conversation with me about when I brought this up at the time, but it is the same match. I mean, yes, it might not be move for move the exact same match every single time, but it's a match that starts as a tag match, breaks down. Paul Travell and Alex Shane go brawling off around the building, doing moves off stages and walls and things. Or Ulf Herman spends that time just hitting the other guy in the ring with weapons.
Yep.
And then they do something.
And did Alex's half of this conversation go, keep your fucking mouth shut? So, Alex and Travell go off around the building. Ulf does a top rope dive to the floor before the bin full of weapons comes out. One of my jobs at this point was the weapons buyer. So everything in that bin was something that came from Poundland in Hemel Hempstead, where I was living at the time. And I would go there every month, like the day before the show, and drop 10 to 20 quid on crap that made a good noise, wouldn't be too painful when it broke, or might be funny, and go in the hardcore bin, and then somehow managed to claim that back when I got to the show. This match has one of a pair of Dreamcast keyboards that they had on a 2 for £1 special. Before the show, somebody moistened the cup of the plunger and stuck it to Burchill's chest, I remember. Ulf breaks a chalkboard that I believe he wrote "Eat this motherfucker" on before the show, over Parker's head, casually flings it over his shoulder, and it perfectly clips Andy Coyne in the head as he's walking around the ring. So good. Parker gets split open, and then Lambert tries to hide it behind his notepad. Travell finds a cheese grater backstage. I'm pretty sure I didn't buy that, and used it to open Shane up to even the score. And then in the ring, around the same time, something I've apologised to Scott Parker for my part in many, many times the intervening years. Ulf puts a large plaster garden gnome, yes, from Poundland, on Parker's balls and shatters it with a spade.
I have a piece of that garden gnome in my attic somewhere, yeah. It broke and it came all the way over to me. I just almost caught it and
So, fucking hell, poor Parker gets battered in this match. He gets the shit kicked out of him. He takes a pile driver on a film can, which means I must have been working at the BFI archive when this happened, because that's where I nicked those from. Alex and Travell do a complicated spot that ends with Shane getting a Russian leg sweep into the wall. Shane flattens a security guard with a big boot. He was supposed to blade, but if he did, it wasn't caught on camera. Shane goes for the whole affair, which is a one-night stand off the top rope. Yes, Eddie, it has a name. He goes to do that through a board that's bridging the ring and the guardrail, but Travell turns it into a flying tornado DDT off the top rope through it instead. This looked so painful. Also, it was supposed to be a table, but they forgot to bring the legs to screw into it.
They covered that quite well in the commentary. They called it a spare ring board.
Yes.
You think, okay.
And as we've covered before, the FWA ring was put together with those boards rather than long planks, as a lot of rings are. Travell pulls Coyne into the path of a Herman chair shot. He bleeds and gets taken to the back. Ulf smashes Travell open with a keyboard and then goes to collect Linsky, who, despite protesting, takes over reffing duties. And when Ulf turns Travell over to show Linsky, it's Ian Disciple instead. So many head shakes. That's the point. He low blows Ulf. Lambert enters the ring with a decanter, takes aim at Ulf's head, but Raj Ghosh makes the save and then turns and shatters it over Ulf Herman's head. Ulf bleeds, the family win, and have a new member. Does anybody have any complaints about Ian Disciple pretending to be Paul Travell?
The only complaint I've got, and I'm turning into Eddie here, too much Linsky. Exclamation mark. Fuck me.
I think the heel bit's just gonna annoy the fuck out of me.
Yeah.
Because they're doing the whole.
You might as well quit this show now, buddy, because it doesn't finish.
It's every time they need to do a shit finish or shit thing. Yeah, there here comes Linsky.
It will go on Linsky. Yeah, heat on Linsky.
Yeah, and they're doing the whole, and the referees are arguing, It's like, right, okay, I just can't be fucked with this anymore at this point. And then, Ian Disciple just looks like the Fester from the Addams Family at certain points with facial movements and things. When I see him, I'm like, Christ. But yeah, It's Alex Shane, so you kind of, again, as we've already talked about, you know where you're getting. It's the Alex Shane bubble. It's the Shane verse. And the matches are, as we say, as we've kind of been talking about, they are really the same in essence, and the same kind of like brawls out to the outside, back in shenanigans. Attitude era Shane stuff. But that's what to expect.
But they were all a chapter in an ongoing story.
Mm-hmm.
So these weren't done. This wasn't just a random hardcore match. Like the stakes would be escalated each time.
No, this had reason. For it to be here. Yes, they're feuding with them.
The original plan for this match was a whole load of people were going to bleed. So the security guy that Alex kicked, a photographer, the ref. To achieve this, they were going to pass a blade around. And somebody, for reasons of health and common sense, managed to get this idea shut down. Yes. And everybody had their own razor blades. Yes. The finish of James Ty and Jody Fleisch, I sent you as well. This is one side of a 4-man number one contenders tournament. They invent the stupid both men go for a springboard spot that people laughed at when Ricochet and What's-His-Face did it, and both spill out to the floor. As Jody's about to get in the ring, a fan in a Ducko Chan mask who had been sitting there all night leaped over the barrier and pulled him to the floor, costing him the match by count out. The mask then comes off to reveal that it's Johnny Storm, and the genius part is he'd even been sitting there during Johnny Storm's match. Everybody bought it. It was great. The trick was, for the first half of the show, it was George Castano. And then he and Johnny just changed to swap clothes in the interval, and George went out.
Similar hairstyle.
Exactly.
It's good to see that Jorge Castano can be used for something, I guess.
Yeah, he snuck him back into the country from Colombia.
The whole angle was better on the night. It was almost underplayed when you watch this back on the tape.
Yeah.
The camera doesn't... Like, the magic on the night was this guy was... He was obviously drawing attention to himself because he was sat there in a Daco Chan mask, but he wasn't being...
And a bright red T-shirt. Yeah.
So he was just somebody that you notice, and you noticed him there during Johnny's match, but then, of course, he gets in the ring. But I think they could have made more of it because it was a very, very clever angle.
So I watched the whole show, and I did notice during the Johnny Storm match, there were a couple of shots edited in of the guy in the mask, taken from different matches because he hadn't actually been caught on camera during Johnny Storm's match. Ty doesn't want to take the win like this, despite a wag in the crowd shouting, "Just take the victory, James!" He offers 5 more minutes. Jody accepts. The ref accepts, but out comes Linsky, and he's the party pooper. He says because he's the head ref, the match is over. If either man touches the other, they're both out of the tournament. And this is exactly what he did between Barker and Low-Key when they went to a draw at Frontiers of Honor. Birchall versus Hampton Court.
Yay.
Duke still has a bandage on his arm and an announcement to make. He says at his good friend Prince William's birthday party, he slipped on a bottle of Chateaubriand 1925 and re-injured his arm. Simmons sped out into the dark night and found a doctor who's provided him with written certification that he is not fit to compete. He has found a replacement. The one man Birchall did not attack at Season's beatings. The Beast, more toes, Mark Sloan. Dean does the disclaimer stuff. I thought I'd get a bigger laugh than that. Fucking hell. Oh, it was good. You don't have to. It's fine. Dean does the disclaimer and sends Birchall into fight. It's the same as the other squash. I just put it on because it's fun. Birchall killing people. He does. I did particularly like a springing elbow drop off the middle rope to both of them and a uranagi that makes Simmons scream in midair. Move with no name on Sloan. Birchall departs and they're counted down for the knockout. Also on this show, they did a lot of story stuff on these shows. After Zebra Kid and Mark 5-star Belton, yes, he's back, but not as 5-star Flash. After they stiff the shit out of each other, Hayde Vanson, who's been doing security, hops into the ring to complain on the mic. To sell it as a shoot on the VHS, Alex can be heard, quote, in the commentary booth telling production to cut the mic before he says anything too provocative. Vanson also showed up at one of the pub nights, and he and Alex had a worked brawl in the street to try and sell the angle. Johnny Storm retains the European title over Super Crazy, replacing the originally advertised Psychosis. And in the other match in the number one contenders tournament, Flash Barker beats Jack Xavier in a match that is much better when they're hitting each other than when they're trying to wrestle. There is a superplex in this match so hard that Jack Xavier takes it and bounces back up to his feet. Finish is really good, though. Barker turns the Xaviator into the Flash in the pan and gets the pin. The main event, Doug Williams defending against a man I left off the list of biggest stars to ever pass through the FWA, Bryan Danielson. However, here, he is specifically the masked American Dragon and not Bryan Danielson. All the crowd have watched him on Ring of Honor tapes without the mask, but he is wearing essentially his all-star gimmick. The crowd are pissed. Like, they are yelling at him to take his mask off, and he's refusing. Like, he's not having any of it and is committed to it. I think there was something else previously I had called a match that would be great on an all-star show but doesn't hold water on an FWA show, and this is one of them, I think. It doesn't help. The commentary is atrocious, like miscalling stuff, missing the point of a lot of the work. It kind of put me to sleep a bit.
Had this been announced as, like, beforehand, as, like, Bryan Danielson versus...
It had been announced as American Dragon, and they left everybody to assume that he would be unmasked, because for a lot of time, I don't know if he was actually using the name Bryan Danielson at this point in Ring of Honor. I think he was still just called American Dragon. And I remember the first time I saw American Dragon, he was this skinny, pale little man in white trunks and no mask. And I'm like, how the fuck is he called American Dragon? The finish, although, is great and almost goes wrong. Doug scores the final pin with a tiger suplex version of the Chaos Theory.
Mm-hmm. What was the score? What was the score when the falls? 2-1.
2-1. Yep.
Now.
It's a nice match, but it's a 2002, 2003 American Dragon match rather than the 2007.
Yeah. Bear in mind, he's only 22 at this point.
Wow.
And he's already being called one of the best wrestlers on the circuit.
Does he ever come back to FWA at all after this?
Yes, but not televised. We'll get to that very shortly. July. Literally nothing happens in July. So August. Northern Exposure Tour, only 3 dates this time. Morecambe on the 2nd, Bolton on the 3rd, Cleethorpes on the 4th, and then one unrelated random date in Newport on the 21st called FWA 2. For whatever reason, the Northern Exposure Tour was originally announced as FWA 2. I don't know why they thought this thing needed a sequel. So Jody Fleisch is on this tour, having not been on British Breakout, as is new Academy prospect Eamon Shahan, later Aaron O'Neill. GPW's Mike Bishop, who annoyingly doesn't have a profile on Cage Match or Wrestling Data. And your import is Christopher Daniels. John Atkins is the ring announcer on the road. Andy's mate Youngie, Richard Young, joins the company as the referee on this tour as well. Night 1, Alex Shane becomes tag team champion again, this time with Stevie Knight as his partner. I'm pretty sure Stevie was quite instrumental behind the scenes on setting all this tour up.
Yeah.
They lose it back to the family on the last night. Jody Fleisch and Jack Xavier have the best match of Xavier's career to date in Morecambe. Like, they're the opener and they tear the fucking house down. It's really good.
I think Xavier versus Ty the next night in Bolton's actually better, to be honest.
I haven't seen that since it happened. Is it on the Best of the Breakout, Best of Northern Exposure tape?
Yeah.
Really? Interesting. Okay.
On that, yeah.
We might end up with that at some point then. The main event of the 4th is Doug Williams versus Jody Fleisch versus American Dragon on loan from All Star for one night only to replace the advertised Johnny Storm, who was buggered off to the US on a tour. Newport is notable for only 2 things. A family versus Shane and Nikita match where Paul Travell ends up with a Kylie Minogue album cover over his head and tries to blade through it to make it look like Kylie is also bleeding. And the main event non-title 3-way match, also involving Flash Barker, where James Ty pins the champion Doug Williams. We watched the main event of Bolton, though, which was Doug Williams and Jody Fleisch versus Johnny Storm and Christopher Daniels. I wanted to see this match so much when it was announced. I travelled from Hertfordshire with 2 friends, and I also took my camera, so I got paid to film it.
Always bring your gear, Kieran.
Always bring your gear.
You weren't the only one, because there were regular, like the Northern Tour shows didn't normally bring the Southeast fans out, but
no,
they did for this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Was this Bolton venue? Was it that one at Orwich?
Yeah,
this is Horwich Leisure Centre. Yeah,
it's 8 miles out of Bolton. It's Horwich Leisure Centre next to.
Well, it's Bolton to us Southerners.
It's closer to Chorley than it is Bolton.
You've just reminded me. When our car pulled into the car park, we got out, and the sticker in the window of the car next to us had a Phoenix Nights Chorley FM coming in your ears sticker in the window.
I'm sure the Bolton venue had like bloody homicide on once, didn't they?
Oh, I'm not sure. After we had done there a few times, they'd done the April tour and won a few years before that as well with Nova, I think.
Yes, they ran, and they would come back later on as well. There is another date in this one, I think. Yes, yeah, there is 2004. They do a couple, which we'll get to. I still really like this match. I love what a brilliant shithead team Chris Daniels and Johnny Storm are. No, Andy's shaking his head. No, likey?
Shite and underwhelming.
Really?
Wow.
God, you watched half of this stuff on a bad day, didn't you?
Well, no, I didn't. I just thought they were half-arse in it. They thought they turned up to Bolton. Couldn't do it on a cold Tuesday night in Bolton or Norwich.
Wow.
I did laugh at looking at my notes like Stormy Daniels, the one who I've got more of a tit of laughing at that thing.
Oh wow!
In my own head than this match. I thought it was just underwhelming.
I guess if you're wanting kind of like an all action kind of high intensity tag match, it's not that, is it? Because Daniels, especially, he is kind of almost like hamming it up as he's having a lot of fun with it. He's having it up like a panto baddie, isn't he? He's a lot more than he would do if it was one of the London FWA shows or in ROH. But I think that makes the match.
But I think that his style here fits in with his style he was doing at Frontiers of Honor, where and I think it is. There's some funny ha-ha stuff in the first half, but then like. Everything after Jody gets the hot tag on Doug is like explosive stuff. I always like this match. Eddie, do you want to chime in?
Yeah, I thought this was fine. One thing I didn't have an issue with it. The one thing I found really funny was Alex Shane doing a mix of play-by-play and colour at the same time and kind of talking over Tony Giles.
Yeah, so this is taken from the Best of the Northern Explosion Tour tape, and the commentary on that is Tony Giles and Alex Shane.
But I kind of the panto kind of or kind of cheeky little shit heels between Daniels and Storm was fine. I had no issue with it. I get where kind of it can kind of at points be quite annoying, but yeah, I thought it was perfect. I thought it was fine. I didn't have any major issues with this match, and also it's like, it's like one of those things where it's like it's good to have all the main guys in this kind of like area. And Daniel, again, one of the things I do like about Christopher Daniels is he's consistently coming over, even though they did the whole thing of, he's not. He's when he was FW champion, he's refusing to kind of come over and stuff like that.
Now he doesn't have the belt. He's over all the time.
No, he doesn't have the belt. He's like, I'll do another tour. I want to come back. That's fine. No issue at all. But yeah, I think, and also like the venue is quite nice, quite good as well. I enjoyed it.
I hated this venue. It was just a big.
I don't know where you were looking, Eddie. It looks awful.
Yeah,
having a sports hall.
Yeah,
I like sports halls. Especially when I watch All Japan at the moment. Some of the shows they do are quite good.
I called this the best tag match you'll ever see in a ring the size of a double bed, because this is in that shit 14-footer as well.
And it does look a very small ring when all four are actually in there.
Yeah.
Towards the end of that match, yeah.
They do very well to not keep falling over each other with the stuff they're doing in the ring this size. Finish is a complicated spot where Doug ends up backdropping Johnny over the top. Jody sends Daniels into a Williams uppercut and then hooks no Conor Roll with a bridge for the pin. My only complaint, Daniels is not the legal man on the pin. You're not going to have Jody Fleisch pin Johnny Storm.
Yeah, that's it. There's a big section. Obviously, Jody versus Johnny is still, at this point, your big direction, isn't it? So
yes.
There's bits where they do a bit of square off, and it's Daniels taking that pin to keep the big feud alive.
And so, our final stop, September, Hot Wired, Broxbourne on the 21st. I hate this show. The lighting is harsh, the hard cam's on the piss, the imports are uninspired, and the booking is really stupid. So the VHS of this was farmed out to Sumner's post-production in Manchester to put together. And they did this, British Uprising 2, and the profile episodes that lead into the TWC series, and then were told to fuck off because they did such a bad job. They didn't know about wrestling. The audio is really bad. I cleaned up the segment I sent to you because on the VHS it's dreadful. The commentators are frequently getting drowned out by music and crowd. The graphics are shit and there's some weird edits. At one point, the loose head static camera up next to the hard cam just follows a photographer around ringside and they leave it in. That company thankfully went out of business in 2014. This is our on-tape debut of Steve Cox and Mike Bishop as referees, adhering to the FWA standard of all the referees must look like pub landlords. And to emphasise that he is both the heel ref and the head ref, Linsky now has a red shirt, whereas all the others have navy. Your opener is Jack Xavier beating former ECW wrestler Easy Money. The brilliant editor misses Easy hitting his signature money clip. And the fans loved this so much, they chanted, "You were robbed" at Easy when the match finishes. This was originally supposed to be Jack Xavier versus Jody Fleisch, but it was announced on the website on the 11th that Jody had suffered a serious out-of-the-ring injury and was being pulled from all wrestling shows until further notice. And this was later upgraded to a full retirement. Now, the story I heard, I'm going to caveat this with the story I heard, was his girlfriend, remember her from the Channel 4 documentary, either suspected him of or caught him cheating on her and put a kitchen knife through his hand.
Jesus.
Has anybody heard any different?
Oh, there's all sorts of rumours going around. There was something.
Has anybody heard the same?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So, Jody Fleisch is gone. This was a massive pain in the arse for the FWA because Fleisch versus Storm 1-on-1 at Uprising 2 have been built to since March.
Oh.
Yes. Also, slightly less dramatically, Brandon Thomas quit the business weeks before Hotwired. He would be gone for about 3 years and never return to the FWA.
Not cosplay Connor Mills.
No, what? Jesus, who looks nothing like Jesus, is done. The final of the number one contenders tournament is held here. James Tye beats Flash Barker by reversing Flash in the Pan into a cradle. So he gets to face Doug Williams for the title in the main event of Uprising 2 next month. Barker, as the consolation prize, gets a shot at the All England title, but he must take it that night. Yes, this is stupid. It also marks 2 matches in a row that ended with a cradle and a handshake. Comedy misogynist Stevie Knight arrives and takes over Nikita's spot as the guest ring announcer for Mark Sloan versus Simmons. Simmons wins a match that goes at least 5 minutes too long. They butcher the Uprising 2 music video into an ad for the VHS in which they spell Bethnal Green wrong. This is why Sumners were fired. Flash versus Zebra for the All England title goes to a no contest in a whopping 1 minute and 30 seconds when Haid Vanson hops the rail, wanders into the ring and gets into a brawl with Zebra. Security rush the ring. Shane sprints out and throws some punches at him. Security scoop up Haid Vanson and carry him out of the front door. It's spoiled slightly by a couple of security guards smiling, but thankfully they at least cut away before Lisa, the head of security, went, "That looked really real," as I remember from the camera tapes when I got them. In a Premier Promotions guest match.
Ooh.
So, the FWA started a series of guest matches where they would showcase other companies on their shows. They framed it as using their platform and their self-described position as Britain's number one wrestling company to showcase this talent and maybe boost them as well. And a lot of fans were quite set against this, noting that a lot of these other promotions ran far more regularly than the FWA and frequently outdrew them.
Mm.
So this was a Premier Promotions guest match, and it was Lee Darren versus Jace the Ace. In hindsight, I should have sent this to you. This match won over the Smarky High Spot Mutants that made up the FWA core audience on the night. Honestly, it's still really good today, mostly because it's a load of basic stuff done really well. Mm-hmm. So Jace is this dynamic babyface in camo pants, and Darren is this skinny, greasy heel. He looks awful. He's like, his chest looks like someone has put a wet paper bag over a toast rack. And he's in this dreadful singlet and tights. the crowd decided he looked like he worked in a chippy, so relentlessly chanted things like "Chip Shop Boy, where's your hairnet?" and "You got battered" at him
He gets
for the whole match. And he played into it as well.
Yeah, of course, it's a Premier Promotions guest match. It's Premier rules. It's 5-minute rounds, 2 falls, public warning.
Right.
Yeah,
Was it 2-1?
It was 2-1, yes.
But Lee Down gets the public warning, and everyone starts chanting "Chip Shop Warning" at him.
Yes, yeah.
He wins his first fall. Well, he equalises, and everyone starts chanting "Holy Chip, Holy Chip" when he gets the win.
Yeah. This match is loads of fun. Jace hits a top rope leg drop to take the deciding fall. It is beautiful. Like, think of the best Bobby Eaton top rope leg drop you've ever seen. It's like that. Both of these guys should have been used again. They were both excellent on the night.
As they're going out, JCS wins, and everyone, the FWA fans are chanting sign him up," as if this thing is an FWA contract.
Yeah. There's a VHS ad for Hot Wired, the show you're now watching. British Uprising 2 canonically hasn't happened yet, and Crunch would never surface. Great work, lads. The thing I sent you is still, to this day, one of my favourite ever non-wrestling segments. The Duke of Danger's public workout, also known as the peasant thrashing.
Yes.
So, finally, it has been signed. Burchill will take on Simmons and Duke of Danger, although it was only ever advertised at Hampton Court. So some people were going, well, like, is he going to have to fight Simmons and the Maid? Of course he wasn't going to fight Simmons and the fucking Maid. Hampton Court versus Burchill will take place at Uprising 2. And the Duke of Danger wants to test his newly recovered arm by showing off his devastating offense on 4 peasants from the FWA Academy. They are Alan Gallagher, Rishi Ghosh, brother of Raj, Mark Underwood.
I think I know one, but I could be completely wrong. I'm going to make a guess here. Please tell me if I'm wrong.
Yes.
Is that PJ Black, Justin Gabriel?
That is PJ Black. Yes. Yeah. He was an FWA Academy trainee for a while.
Yeah. Wow.
I do believe we get one TV match with him during the TWC run. One was taped during that run. I don't know if it aired.
He's smiling. Sorry, I know we're not jumping ahead in the segment, but when his bit comes up, he's just smiling. I found it great. I was like, that's definitely PJ Black.
They all kind of are. Gallagher is trying so hard to hide his laughter throughout this whole thing. So the moves he demonstrates are the Scoundrel Smasher, which is a Liger Bomb on Mark Underwood. The Swine Buster, a suplex into a neck breaker on Gallagher. Peasant Dreams, pump handle into reverse DDT into grounded Dragon Sleeper. Way too complicated on PJ Black. And finally, the sharpshooter on Rishi Ghosh is called the Peasant Plucker.
Peasant Plucker, yeah.
While Duke has the plucker on Ghosh, Dean Ayers enters the ring, takes Simmons' mic and tells him the next move is For Whom the Bell Tolls. And this is the debut of the Big Ben chime on the start of Burchill's music. That sample adds so much to the Burchill aura and character. It's like, oh fuck, trouble is coming.
Worked for Jim Smallman as well.
I was just thinking, like, buddy, Nigel Benn used it for his ring
Did he?
entrance.
Johnny Fair used it as his entrance in FWA a few years later.
Oh, good lord!
Yeah.
Nick Gage uses it,
Yeah.
and I was excited. And I think someone else used it, and it was
Sammy
at Fight
Callahan.
Club, and I thought it was. Yeah, it was. I thought.
All
it was
right,
Nick
we're
Gage.
scraping the bottom of the barrel if we got to Sammy Callahan. I'm not having that on this show. So Burchill hits the ring and wrecks the peasants. This contains possibly my favourite ever line from Nick London. If you've only just joined us, peasant number 2 has just died. Fabulous. The roof comes off for the debut of what will be known as the C4, the one-man standing Spanish fly on Rishi Ghosh.
It's beautiful.
And then once all the peasants have been destroyed, Ayers puts a button on this by doing the disclaimer telling Duke and Simmons that a British uprising, Mr. Burchill and Mr. Ayers accept no responsibility for any broken bones. This went perfectly. It could not have been any better. I love this segment with all of my heart and have for 21 years.
It was. I agree with you. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and it's such a. I think I don't know what it is, but just how kind of the comedy with Simmons, and obviously the Duke of Danger, and the theme music. Again, it's just as soon as the theme music goes, everyone starts cheering because it's Simmons. And it just they just work so well. And then you've got obviously like this tagged with Burchill will literally the man they call Burchill who will kill you. It just works so well. It's just simple wrestling stuff, but it's perfect.
Did you enjoy this more than a tag match in Bolton, Andy?
Yeah, I'm not going to shit on this one. No, it perfectly sets things up. That they've been trying to dodge Burchill, to be honest. Well, Duke of Danger has, and
yeah, something we haven't seen and I didn't really touch on is that most of Burchill's run-ins have been happening in Duke of Danger matches, and have very often led to him winning.
Yeah.
Right.
Ralph came up with the idea that they never did, which was they should eventually reveal that Burchill was the gardener and he'd been knobbing Buttercup. So, Johnny Storm retains the XPW European title against Chris Hamrick by disqualification. This originally had the stip that if Storm won, he would never have to face Jody Fleisch in the singles match in the FWA. I suspect that the original plan was for Jody to cost Johnny the match, possibly by count out via use of a Ducko Chan mask as we're in the same building. They'd then have their match at Uprising. Instead, earlier in the night, they'd alter the stipulation by way of a statement from Johnny Storm saying, he says, retirements in wrestling never last forever, and if he wins, Fleisch is barred from the FWA for life when he inevitably comes back. He says, as this match was an open challenge he agreed to verbally rather than signing a contract for it, if his demands are not met, he will simply refuse to wrestle. Because XPW had gone out of business by the time this match had happened, we mentioned this hours ago. Yes, Rob Black, the owner, was a pornographer. He had been indicted by the FBI on obscenity charges relating to his porn business, and I believe would actually serve jail time. The stipulation becomes that if Hamrick wins, the XPW European title will be retired. At the start of the match, Dino Scarlo stumbles over accepting Johnny's terms, so the match goes ahead. And like I said, it's an entertaining mix of like comedy and 2000s indie athleticism. Hamrick does that bump. The finishing move, unfortunately, leads to a stupid finish, but it's incredible. He does an Owen driver that starts in a position that you'd never see a pile driver coming from. Johnny basically has him ready for a snapmare, and Hamrick basically grabs him by the waist and in one motion flips him upside down into a pile driver. It's fantastic. However, pile drivers are outlawed in the FWA, so Hamrick is disqualified. This, unfortunately, is the final appearance of Chris Hamrick in the FWA. And your main event was Britain's first ever double barbed wire baseball bat match. Family versus Alex Shane and Ulf Herman. And Ben already knows what's coming because this is fucking stupid. So the rules are, it's a normal tag match until a fall is scored. After that, it's no DQ and all weapons are legal, with the winners of the fall getting to take the bats. And the next fall is what decides the match. Got that?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody understand?
Yeah. 2 falls. It's too much. The winners of the first fall get control of the baseball bats for the second half of the no DQ decisive match.
Yes. Yeah. So he can't do the switcheroo again. Ian Disciple now has hair. And I noticed Greg Lambert was having an argument with some idiot in a straw hat in the front row.
Yeah.
This is the match I mentioned last month where Raj Ghosh gets whipped through the barrier. Although the chosen ad camera angle is a bit shit and you can't see it. So, forgive me, lads. Travell pokes Shane in the eye and the blinded show stealer hits Linsky with a diamond cutter and covers him. Travell makes the 3 count, so that's Alex pinning Linsky. Ulf runs in and powerbombs Travell. Steve Cox, new referee, hits the ring to count the 3, so the show swearers get the bats. As I recall, the barbed wire on one bat was legit and the other one isn't. That's why there's a bit in the match where Alex and Ulf swap bats for no apparent reason. It's weapons, it's violence, it's blood. Travell introduces thumbtacks, but Shane gives him the whole affair into the thumbtacks. Cox counts the pin. So the show swearers are the tag champions. Steve Linsky then returns and says, this is a direct quote, You diamond cutted me and covered me with arrogance. Therefore, you are disqualified and the family are still the tag champions.
Oh, fuck off.
This doesn't make sense even in the internal logic of the match, because the DQ would just mean the family win the first fall and get control of the bats.
Basically, they made them another match into a 2-1 scoreline, haven't they?
So, a match in which Alex Shane and Ulf Herman pin the tag team champions twice, they lose.
Fuck me.
Yes.
And this is Lindsay coming back like 10 minutes after being knocked out as well in the first time.
So, regardless of all of this, the go-home show before Uprising ends with the heels winning the last 2 matches by disqualification. And they try and rescue this with Alex Shane's post-match promo. This was advertised as Alex and Ulf's final shot at the tag title, and he says it's beyond caring about the titles anymore. It's become personal. He wants one more match at Uprising 2. If the family win, then he and Herman are gone from the company for good. But if the show swearers win, then Greg Lambert has to take a chair shot from Ulf Herman in the middle of the ring. And that is where we end our very long coverage of 2003 and some of 2002 in the FWA. I apologise for this marathon we've all just gone through.
I think it's worth it.
Got any favourite bits, anybody?
Seasons beatings.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think
fun times we're living all of it, to be honest. This 2003 period, especially that period from Crunch, Frontiers of Honor, Vendetta, creatively in ring, it never got better than that.
I've got to say, rewatching Vendetta as a whole, that show still holds up. Apart from the main event, which is not as good as it should be. It's not as good as you think it should be, with being Doug Williams versus Bryan Danielson. The rest of that show is really good.
It's the storylines that take place throughout the shows as well. It's not just a one angle move on to the next thing. There's both Crunch and Vendetta are both like that. I got the chance to relive a match I completely forgot about. We didn't really talk about it. There's a Zebra Kid Belton match is absolutely brilliant. I forgot all about that. They
beat the shit out of each other, don't they? Yeah, it's because they didn't like each other, and Belton wasn't going to stand for any of Roy's shit.
So it's been a blast reliving some of that, to be honest, because they were good times.
I would say Seasons beatings and the Burt Show stuff has been quite good, because again it's developed and we understand now where he's coming from. And
I wanted to make sure you got to see a lot of the virtual stuff, because that was some of my favourite stuff, like running through. And much like the Alex and Ulf versus Family stuff, it all followed the same formula, but each was a chapter in the story. You knew you even knew the moves he was going to do in the in the run-in or in the match, but like it all built towards this eventual showdown with Duke and Simmons.
You can clearly see what people saw in Burt Show. Especially for him to get signed and stuff like that. It's pretty clear you can see the workings there.
But I think one thing we can agree, not the virtual thing, but I think one thing we can agree on all over is, since he brought the new rules in and, the stuff with Linsky, it's just over-egged the pudding, hasn't it?
Yeah, I guess so, but I'm afraid you're going to have to suck it up, because we've got a lot of heel Linsky.
I think my issue with it is it's a cop-out, but it's also kind of leaning on stuff that also could get people quite pissed off. Because don't get me wrong, like, as much as we shit on Linsky, like, and obviously, allegedly, he may or may not have, decided to not turn up with a ring to a wrestling show. You're leaning on that to then kind of make him look like a bad guy.
Yeah.
When
it was the new work. Like Alex and the FWA loved doing the work shoot stuff, which at this point was still like fairly new, and it was unique among like British promotions for sure.
Especially with the coin stuff as well. You're like, are they going to have a match? Are they going to, try and settle this? And it's just like,
oh Christ, no. There's never an Andy Coyne versus Steve Linsky match. Thank God.
We're not getting Nick Patrick versus Alex Shane as ref.
Before we take this home, I wanted to ask Ben a couple of quick other things. Any additional favourite memories from outside the period we've covered today?
The first year of the TV, I think, is actually quite good. I think it's very good. I think the run up to Uprising 3 is... from this period, from 2002.
No, from outside what we've talked about today.
Okay, yeah. 2004 was a very, very strong year, I think, in FWA. I think you'll look forward to a lot of that run up from between the two to British Uprising 2 and British Uprising 3. There's some really good stuff on there. It's probably as good as 2003. I think there's some really good things that you'll get to experience. It quickly goes downhill from there, I would say, but
it kind of does a bit. Yeah, I didn't want to say that, but yeah, British Uprising 3 kind of is like the death knell of like this era of FWA.
I think you'll enjoy as well when they start doing obviously the tours were quite a rare thing, just taking you're very much leaning on local promoters being taken in by the sales pitch. You'll obviously notice there was only three people taken in by the sales pitch for the second tour compared to the 8 or so on the first one.
Yes.
But the Morecambe shows especially, they become very much more established. They run more Morecambe shows than they do Boxborn, so you'll see quite a lot of TV from there. They almost become a thing in their own right, and I think you'll very much enjoy those shows. I certainly at the time started enjoying those Morecambe shows a lot more than what they're doing down south. It was almost like a separate promotion in its own right until it did.
And then eventually it is.
In its own right, yeah.
Yeah. And when and why did you stop following the company?
They stopped running.
All right, fair enough.
Doing that kind of main Boxborn or Brent or wherever show every couple of months. They stopped doing it. They didn't have a main series of shows that they were doing aside from Morecambe. You'd get a Morecambe show every 2 to 3 months, but then you'd get like an odd show in Cleethorpes once a year, say, or then they'd be doing rugby or Warwickshire. It really, they lost that consistency. And what tends to happen as well is a lot of people who were involved in helping and running and getting their first kind of exposure to organising FWA thought we can do this ourselves. So very quickly you got things like LGN, like SAS, like IPW UK, like 1PW, all kind of starting up, and they're kind of doing the FWA thing better than the FWA did.
Yeah, I think IPW is the one that really kind of like scratched that smart fan itch.
Yeah.
Like, Orpington became a place to be every month. Like, it had the same must-see as FWA did.
It was the same regular characters and storylines and things that FWA were giving. You were still getting a couple of imports every single time as well. But they weren't touring around the country. There was less illogical stuff.
Yes.
It was a hotter crowd, and there was more regular shows. You knew that every single month there was going to be a good show to go and see. So yeah, they started doing, as I say, the FWA thing better than the FWA. So yeah, it became less and less essential to see. It lost all direction. It didn't become an organisation. It just dropped off.
I mean, I could argue it never was an organisation in any stretch, in any sense of the word organisation.
That is it. You mentioned before, there was no money. It's run on a shoestring, wasn't it? Someone owned the ring, someone else owned the sound and production equipment, someone else owned the title belts and stuff. For instance, the wrestlers were, it was being booked by different people. There was no one owner. There was no promoter, was there?
Ben, I want to thank you so much for coming and doing this today, and apologies for keeping you much longer than we wanted to.
It's been a blast. Thank you, guys. You're doing a banging job covering this stuff, and it's been great to relive it. So yeah, keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you very much. The floor is yours. Plug the Twitter, plug the YouTube channel, do the whole thing.
I will plug the YouTube channel because what are we now? We're 22 years later, and I am still going to wrestling shows on the regular. Although now I am covering quite a lot of them from a fan's view on YouTube. So if you do want to go and check out my videos, you can find them on BritWresAwayDays channel on YouTube, where I'm not trying to cover shows. I'm trying to cover what it's like to be at a show. So you might find something interesting there. So go and check it out.
Fabulous stuff. Eddie, hit your plugs.
You can find me at Eddie Sideburns or 5-Star Wrestling Sideburns on Twitter/X. You can find me, I think, there's not really much else other than I'll do the typical plug and just get over and done with. The 5,426,000 wrestler tournament has been delayed again.
Oh no.
I know, it just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. We try to find, we were trying to get a permit to do one of the shows on Mars, but, unfortunately NASA just said no. So we're still working on it. Other than that, you can find me on the Twitter. And yeah, I sometimes tweet funny shit. That's about it.
This is true. He does. Andy, go on, give us the full grabs and claps. Yeah, follow Graps and Claps on X at GCP Podcast 1. Ben's a regular guest on there, whether he wants to or not.
He's our British bulldog.
Yeah. You might also see me on many of Ben's videos. As
I usually see the back of Chris Linnae walking into a pub is what I see on Ben's videos. I am very disappointed if at least one shot of that doesn't make it into each video.
You can follow me on Twitter at OggiePart3. Coming up on Graps and Claps, we'll have the usual live reviews and also Muck Volume 5, which is a look at the big show in WWE, ECW, the whole title reign. Which some interesting things on there. Matches against Ric Flair, Batista, The Undertaker.
All people I think of when I think of ECW, yeah.
All the stars. All
the stars. So yeah, go and give that a listen. Also go and listen to me football podcast, Ground Ops Pod. We'll have some episodes sporadically, but yeah, it's there.
Alrighty. As for this show, you can find everything to do with us at linktr.ee/FWApod. We are on Twitter and Blue Sky at FWApod and Instagram at FWA.pod. Plus, and nobody else knows this, because I love extra work for no personal, financial or spiritual gain, as of this episode, you can now find all of our episodes on YouTube. I'm not doing this to build a channel or anything like that, but some people's main way of consuming podcasts is via YouTube, particularly now Google have closed Google Podcasts and are routing all of that through YouTube. It's only 20 minutes extra work for me when I'm editing the shows anyway. It just made sense. So they are not full video shows, as our collective handsomeness would break the internet, but there's some animation to stop your screen getting bored. You can search at FWA Pod on YouTube. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you to Ben for helping us out. Next month, this is a world without a king, and there's two things you can do about it.
Piss blood from your head and shit your pants.
I was going to do that live, but you can have it. You can have it.
I thought you were going to go see your music there.
Here, I'm the main attraction. I am the one and only. Wow!
Call me by my name, or call me Kid of Wonder. 'Cause when I get to it, I'll be kicking ass, I'll steal your thunder. Looking for satisfaction, then watch the style in action. The storm will put you in traction. After